Perhaps we need some outside universal threat to make us recognize this common bound. I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
Hi, I'm Dave, and I'm the guy who hosts Spaced Out Radio. Thank you for tuning us in tonight because we are going into the wilderness looking for Bigfoot and Dogman. Darrell Denton is here for the beautiful state of Tennessee, and we are going to get into his experiences, which are amazing tonight. Yeah, we're going to have fun. Dirty Filth is here with another creepy cartoon because we love our Dirty Filth around here. And the best part about tonight is we have each and every one of you, including Race Fan in the gold medal position, SJ with a silver, Road Flare taking home the bronze medal tonight. So congrats to our medal winners tonight. Hi, Kitty Caddywhack, Robert Lamoth, Matt Carter. Good to have you all here. Brown Dwarf, how you doing, man? Eternity Eternal, Frankie B. Mel WD40 is here, currently lubing us up for tonight's show because you always want to go into a show nice and smooth. You don't want that rigidness. It's uncomfortable. It's unfavorable. Got to have it lubed, which is what we do. And that's why this show runs smoothly each and every night, all because of Mel WD40. Lee the Bee, how you doing? Bar Madison has returned. Bar Madison will be signing autographs after the show. Line up to the left of the studio, if you don't mind, to the left of the studio. Number 24 in your program, starting at right wing tonight from Stockholm, Sweden, Lars Jansson. Corey, how you doing? Human Carl, nice to see you. Thank you, Human Carl, for being a great veteran of the United States Air Force. Thank you for your service, my friend. All right, Jeff Yarrington, welcome to SOR Chat. Little Timmy James, how you doing, bud? And who else is next? Lisa Smith, good to see you. S. Vermette, thanks for coming on in. Good morning, Dutch Hank. How you doing today? Candy Wolf, good to see you. Dogface Simon has returned. Dogface Simon will be signing autographs after the show as well. Line up to the right of the studio, if you don't mind. To the right of the studio. Paramarv, good to see you. Hi, W. David Page. Tim Mothman and his goatee. Two separate entities. Thank you for coming on in. Excuse me, guys. Marty Burback, thank you for joining us. Hi, Cosmic Joe. Deborah Rooney, how are you, my dear? Hope you're having a good night. Lightwalkers, nice to see you. Beverly Hassel, welcome back. Algaray over on Twitch, because he loves Bigfoot so much, he got pumped up by doing 1,400 leg presses at 600 pounds a press. This guy is jacked for tonight. Jacked. Frankie B, how you doing, my man? As we continue on with roll call here, let us say hello next to Lulu Bell. Good to see you. And who's next here? Well, let's take a look. Les Paul Holland from Australia. Thank you for coming on in and strumming your guitars for us. Operation Shutdown. Scott's Life, how you doing? And Gory Tiger. Good to have you all here. Who's next? The lovely and talented, the pride of 100 Mile House, British Columbia. Amber. Dawn. Glover. There she is. Give us a wave, Amber. We always wave back. Continuing on with our roll call, there's purple-haired Pixie Lara. Thank you for coming on in. Christine Lynn, nice to have you here. And who's next here? Hi, Rain. Nice to see you. Cosmic Joe kicking off the super chat tonight. It's a wonderful way to support what we do on this show on a nightly basis. So thank you, Joe, for kicking things off. Much love to you. We really do appreciate it. All right, continuing on. Mac Geek, nice to see you. And Kevin Kennedy, good to have you here. Let's start the radio side. Hello and welcome to the radio and podcast side of Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. We're going to go looking for Bigfoot and Dogman down in Tennessee. Darrell Denton is our guest tonight on Spaced Out Radio. We are in roll call right now. Scott B., nice to have you here as well. If you want to participate in our chat room, you got to go to YouTube for this, or Twitch, or X, one of the three. Beverly, thank you for the lovely super chat. Very much appreciate the love. So thank you very much. And who else is here? We have Jamie Johnson. Welcome to the show tonight. And who's next? Deborah Rooney, thank you for that super chat. Very much appreciate it. And who else is here? Scrolling on down. Mike Rivers, Polly Rotterman, good to see you both. And just like that, it is that time of the night to ask all of you to throw your horns up. Let's rock. From the mountains of central British Columbia to you listening around the world, this, my friends, is Spaced Out Radio. I'm your host, Dave Scott, sitting in the captain's chair of SOR headquarters. We welcome you to tonight's show on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on every major podcast network. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. You can follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. Tonight's show is brought to you by Chive Charities. Help make the world 10% happier by visiting Chive Charities today. You can find them on our website. We got an amazing show tonight all the way from the beautiful state of Tennessee. Darrell Denton is going to join us momentarily to talk everything Bigfoot and Sasquatch and Dogman. Yeah, this man chases cryptid creatures for a living, a true monster hunter. Then in hour number 3, Swamp Dweller is here with another creepy story. Jackie Harmon, otherwise called Jacques Armon, if we were in Quebec. Jacques Armon. She'll be here with the Cryptid Report as well. You guys want woo? We're going to get into it right now. Darrell Denton had his first encounter in his home state of Tennessee in November of 1992. It changed his life forever. Nightmares. He didn't go hunting, and he was an avid hunterman. And he wouldn't even step into the woods for about 7 years. Darrell had his second encounter accidentally while fishing 7 years later, eventually befriending that family. We're going to learn about that. Darrell has become a researcher, or as he says, an experiencer from that day until present. He has had many encounters, befriended another family in 2018 until some of that clan followed him home, terrorized his farm for about 4 months. Oh, yeah, we haven't even got into Dogman yet. Oh, we're getting into it all tonight. Darrell Denton, it's good to have you on Spaced Out Radio, my friend. How you doing?
Hey, Dave, thanks for having me. It's always an honor, brother, to be here with you.
Well, you know what? I'm very proud and privileged to have you here because the one thing that I love about you, you're not researching for a book. You're not researching for a television show. You're not researching to try and make money on whether or not Bigfoot is real. You're doing it because you've seen the creature, you've had encounters, close encounters, and it's changed your life so much that you've made a decision that this has to be a part of your life. Am I saying that correctly?
You're pretty spot on it. You know, I am in the midst now. I've started my first book, but I got into it because of the situation for me was there's a lot of people out there that went through the same thing I did and had no one to talk to. So it's definitely a life changing thing when you go through a first encounter.
Take us back to 1992 in November. It was the 6th, I believe, and
That's
how this all
exactly right.
happened.
Well, me and my there was four of us that hunted at my grandfather's farm for I don't know at that time probably 4 or 5 years. We'd been going up there, and it was opening week of black powder season, which we call muzzleloader, and we got kind of an early start on the chance to get that big trophy buck deer. And my grandfather had a large farm, and even the farms around him, his friends he was very close to, and we were allowed to hunt there too. And it was a pretty remote, rural area. It was out in a good ways from any other, people, neighbors living close to him. He was very rural, and I'd say the closest neighbor was a mile and a half from him, and that was mainly a farmer. And we'd been up there. That was the first day we went up there, and we took a camper and parked it next to my grandfather's barn, and we all had ATVs or four wheelers. A buddy of mine would follow me behind me, pull in the camper, and we parked it next to my grandfather's barn, and we all had ATVs to take off to get to our spot in the woods. That particular trip, I told my grandfather, I said, I want a trophy deer this time. We'd always gotten deer there every year. Everybody would limit. You could only kill one that first week, either sex, and all of us mainly were looking for trophies. So my grandfather pointed over behind his porch. He was 92 years old at that time. He said, if I was you, I would go over to that third ridge there, if you see what I'm talking about. And I could see what he was talking about. He said, it's very remote over there. It's a good walk. And that's my old home place. If you get over there, you'll probably have a better chance of seeing a trophy deer because nobody goes in there. It's probably nobody been in there in years. And basically, that's what I did. I went camped out that night with my friends at the camper. And next morning, my granddad come down and got me up, and I headed on over back through his backyard through a gate across about a 200-yard wide field where his cows were, and there was sage grass in at that time of year, which is a kind of a brown-looking grass that had turned color due to the weather. And I crossed a barbed wire fence at the other side, and it was real steep terrain. I'm talking about like 45-degree angle, these hills and hollows, and there was three that I had to cross, and I climbed over the barbed wire fence and started up the hillside, and I heard something to the left of me, and it kind of startled me. It sounded like someone walking, and shined my flashlight over in that area. I didn't see anything, but it kind of startled me. It kind of sounded like a person. It was a bipedal footsteps, and I knew nobody would be hunting in there. My buddies were hunting in completely different areas, and got on up the hill, kind of listening, and didn't hear anything. Crossed that hill and another one. By the time I got to the last hill, down where I'd put my stand the day before, when I went over there and found the area to put the stand on the side of the hill, I went down. It was next to a creek, and I followed around the edge of that creek bank and found the stand on the tree. And as I was coming down that hill to the bottom towards the stand, I heard that noise again, sound like somebody walking, this time up on top of the hill to my left side, a good ways from me. And shined the light again and did not see anything, but I could hear it continue to walk off, and never seen what it was, but a little startled. I got in my tree stand pretty quick, and there was a climbing stand. You put your feet into some straps on it and climb up the tree and sit back, and kind of when you get high enough to where you wanted to be. And the day before, I'd cut a few limbs off around the tree at the top where I could hang my binoculars and my fanny pack, which had my extra powder horn in it, and Hornady bullets. And I got up there and got set and kind of leaned back. And when you lean back, it kind of digs into the tree. And I put a strap around me in case something happened, and it fell. And had a little blind in front that folded down. It was a camo in front of it. It came up about right above your neck, and there was a little bar you could lean your gun against on the inside of that. And that camo that fell down kind of covered your feet and everything from your neck down. And I was sitting ready to hunt. You know, it was dark. It was in the morning, and I hadn't become daylight yet, and just kind of waited till right around daylight. I could hear the regular critters around, the squirrels running, that type of thing. Didn't hear any more noises to the left, like something walking. But as the sun came up a little bit that morning, it was a foggy morning, and that creek, I could see fog rising off of it. I couldn't see the other side of the creek that was in front of me. Now I'm on like a 45-degree angle on this hill. I'm straight up in a tree about 28 foot up. I'm kind of overlooking a little clearing across the creek next to a game trail. And the day before, there was a limb sticking out off a maple tree. I jumped up and grabbed it. It was about 8 foot off the ground. And I put a drag rag on it, which is what I put on my boot that day on the way in. It kind of covers your human scent up as you go in and kind of tracks buck deer or in that area. And I could see that drag rag hanging in the tree as the fog cleared, and it was, like I said, kind of a clearing across that creek, and there was a game trail right there on the top of it next to the bank of the creek on both sides, and you could see deer tracks and quite a few signs that the deer were in there. And I sat there and waited that morning till, I waiting to see some deer. To the left of me was a large cane thicket. And this is like cane that grows on the river. It looks like bamboo, but it's cane. And it went all the way down the left side of that creek. There was a wide creek, kind of deep, that ran all year round. There was an old grist mill there at one time, back years and years before that. And that tall cane thicket was to the left of me, and it was 12, 15 foot tall, and it went all the way down that creek bank. I couldn't see where it stopped from the angle I was sitting at. And about, I don't know, it was right around 8 o'clock that morning, I seen 3 deer come out of somewhere around that cane thicket over there, and they walked down through the creek and walked up on the bank to the other side of on the game trail there. And it was 3 doe, a female large doe, which is the deer, with 2 younger ones, probably yearlings, and they walked around. And I was watching them, and they were just doing like deer do. They were up there on the game trail, and they were walking around the leaves, and it was a real good year for acorns that year, and they were eating the acorns and walking around in that area over there. I watched them for I don't know how long, probably 20 or 30 minutes, and they were just acting like normal deer and just waiting for the buck to come out and follow them like a lot of times they'll do. And then all of a sudden, the lead deer, the larger female, was just froze, and she was looking very still, with not moving at all, looking toward that cane down the creek bank somewhere in that area, frozen, just staring at it with her ears up. And the other 2 deer were doing the same thing, and she raised her front paw to the right and kind of pawed a couple of times like she was trying to get some movement from something over there. And then she stuck her nose up and made a real loud blowing noise, like someone sneezing almost, but louder. And she looked again in that area and just froze, and she was trying to get something over there his attention. And as I watched her, then all of a sudden she turned to the right and ran right in front and crossed in front of me where I was at, like somebody had shot at her as fast as she could run, the other 2 deer behind her. And I watched them as they went out of sight. And I'm thinking, well, here comes a massive buck deer out of this cane thicket over there, and I'm sitting there in the tree, and I reached up and I grabbed my 50 caliber muzzleloader and I pulled the trigger back, and it's leaning against this bar, and I'm thinking, well, there's a big buck about to come out of this cane thicket. And I started seeing this cane thicket. It was real thick in there. A person couldn't hardly walk in there. It was so thick, but I was seeing it move and sway from the back to the front. And I thought, well, this must be one big deer, because this large area of this cane thicket is moving. The top of I could hear it coming through there, and I'm focused on it stepping out. And thinking it's a deer, and about that time, this creature steps out. And I'm looking to the left as I see this thing step out, and I'm just in shock. I don't recognize what this is, and it steps out, and it takes one step, and it leaps across this creek. And this creek's probably 12 foot wide, probably. One leap, it lands on the game trail the other side, just walks down the creek. I'm kind of overlooking it because I'm up high and I'm on this 45-degree, almost angle hillside, and I'm kind of overlooking this creature. And it walks right down the game trail, walks right to where that drag rag was I'd hung in the tree limb the day before, and reaches up, pulls it down, smells of it, and just rips the whole tree limb out of the tree. Throws the limb on the ground, and this wasn't a massive tree limb, but it was, 3 or 4 inches probably at the base to where it went into the tree. Well, by this time, I'm just flipped out. I can't believe what I'm seeing. I didn't even know what it was. I don't know that I didn't believe in Bigfoot, didn't think much about them. I surely didn't think they were in that area. If they were anywhere, they were out in the Pacific Northwest or British Columbia. But it was definitely one of them, and this thing stops, and after it does that, it goes right back, right straight in front of me, and it's looking right at me. And as I'm in the tree, it knows exactly where I'm at. It's staring at me, and I'm just completely frozen. I can barely breathe by this time because I don't know what to do. This thing is massive. Trying to think, do I shoot this thing, or what do I do? And I'm thinking, well, if I shoot this thing with 150 caliber bullet and it don't take it down, it's going to come across this creek and pull me out of this tree. By this time, I'm literally just scared to death. I don't scare easy. I don't think I've ever been quite that frightened before. And this creature looks at me, it's staring at me, then it lets out a growl. And I mean a growl that I can still feel right now, like a rumble-like growl. And it's staring right at me, and it's not happy. It looks like it's really mad at me for being there. And by this time, I'm trying to think, am I going to try to jump or come down the tree stand and run? What am I going to do here? I was trying to make my mind up what to do, but I was so frozen I could hardly move. And
Let me just interrupt there for a second. How far away was this creature from you when it's looking at you and growling you're in the tree stand? Because you're stuck. You have nowhere to go except down right to its territory.
I've been asked that many times. It was probably 40 or 50 feet. Because I'm kind of overlooking on top of it because I'm on this hillside and it's looking right at me. Plenty close, way too close enough. And, I didn't know what to do. I didn't know where to shoot it or to try to get out of the tree and run or what to do. I really couldn't make my mind up what I should do. But anyway, it's still staring at me, and I'm thinking the whole time, this thing's coming across the creek, and it's going to pull me out of this tree. This is it. This thing is going to come and get me. And about that time, it lets out a massive scream-like yell. And I'm in the bottom of this hollow. It just echoes all down this hollow. And I'm just frozen as this thing is screaming because I'm thinking, well, this is it right here. It's coming across the creek, and I might as well get one shot in. And I'm still got my hand on my gun, and my trigger's pulled back. And then all of a sudden, it just turns and walks straight back turns and just walks away, walks into the hardwoods. It turns and looks at me one time as I'm sitting in the tree, and I'm watching it walk into the hardwoods till it disappeared. And I didn't try to come out of it. I didn't try to climb down the tree stand. I lowered that bar in front of me, just jumped out of the top of this tree with my gun above my head. And I hit the leaves and slid all the way down into the creek. I jumped up out of the creek and took off running around this hillside, this little draw. And this hill's so steep by the time I got to the top of the hill. Looking back continuously, when I crossed the top of that hill, I was so out of breath. I was going up the second hill as I went down the first one. I just started at the second one. I looked back on the ridge continually thinking this thing could be coming after me. And I looked on the ridge and it was standing there watching me on top of that hill. Now, I don't know if it was the same one or one it looked like it, but it was one on top of that hill looking at me. And all it did was just kick in more adrenaline for me. And I just took off running as fast as I could across that hill. And time I got to the first hill that I had to cross the barbed wire fence to get to my grandfather's backyard, about a 200-yard wide field there with sagegrass in it. I just jumped the barbed wire fence as I was coming down that hill, and I caught my pants and ripped the whole left side all the way out past my knee and tore a big cut in the side of my leg. I didn't even realize I'd done that. I just kept running and kept looking back, didn't see it, and I got all the way through the gate and got to my grandfather's back porch and ran into his back area of his house, which was the kitchen when you went in, and went and turned around and locked the storm door and the door and looked out the window to see if this thing was coming. I didn't see it, and I ran into the right and sat down in the corner next to the big old pot-bellied stove my grandfather had in his house, and I was just so out of breath, couldn't talk. My granddad said, "Boy, what's wrong with you?" My granddad always called me boy, he never called me by my name. "Boy, what's wrong with you?" And I couldn't talk. I was out of breath, and he could see that I was, and he said, "You look like you've seen a ghost." And I was trying to get my breath, and I'd get up and look out the window and go back to the kitchen area and look out that door to see if this thing was coming after me. And finally got my breath, and I told him, I said, "Well, I seen a monster in the woods." He said, "A monster?" He said, "There ain't no monsters. What it looked like?" And I told him and explained to him what it looked like, and he goes, "Oh, you seen a wood booger?" And I said, "A wood booger? You've never told me about a wood booger. What is a wood booger?" He said, "Oh, they've been around here for years. The old folks," which he called his parents and grandparents, called them wood boogers. And he said they're real territorial. You get in their area and they don't like you in their area. They won't hurt you, but they don't like you in their area. And I should have thought about might be one over there, but I didn't tell you. And I'm still baffled thinking, I've been on my grandfather's farm most of my life. I've never heard anything about a wood booger, and I've never seen one, and he'd never mentioned one. And he said I've seen 4 of them in my lifetime and heard a lot of them yelling or something in the hollows, and I'll be working in the field, one of them will be looking at me, and they don't bother you as long as you don't bother them. And I'm still trying to believe that I've even seen this thing, much less my grandfather never told me about one of them. But it was, he said in the wintertime they come to the hen house. He had a big chicken house out to the left of his house, and they'll take 3 or 4 chickens, and they'll leave a little pile of sticks and rocks like they're paying for it. But he'd lived with them all his life. He never told me. And he said, "Well, I didn't want to tell you because I didn't want you to be scared to go in the woods or to camp out in the barn or in the field or whatever you wanted to do as you grew up here. And that's why I didn't tell you." So probably wouldn't have done any of that if I'd have known about that thing. But it was definitely the meanest, ugliest looking thing I'd ever seen at that time, and never seen anything like it again. But it was definitely life-changing.
Darrell, we got about 45 seconds before we have to go to break at the bottom of the hour. I want to get into the emotion of it all because this scared you out of the forest. I mean, you can talk about it calmly now, but what was that emotion like when you had that fear running through you?
I don't, like I said, Dave, I've never been real fearful of anything, and I've never had that kind of fear before. I literally thought this thing was going to come at the tree and just pull me out of it and kill me. I really did. But it was shocking enough. I had nightmares for, months. Didn't sleep, didn't go into the woods for, it was in 99 the next, I'd still hunted, but I'd hunt in my truck and I wouldn't go in the woods. I would hunt in the field. Or some of the fields. I didn't hunt a lot, but I hunted some. I actually went back the next day with friends.
Hold that thought. We're going to go to break here at the bottom of the hour. Darrell Denton and his incredible encounter with Sasquatch. The fear, and what it was like to overcome it on Spaced Out Radio, coming up right after this. That was an amazing start, man. I think you had all of us glued right there, my friend.
Well, it's just a true encounter, and I tell you what, I've gotten over it over the years. But after what I know now, I don't feel the fear that I once did, because I know now if that thing wanted to kill me, it could have. So, and I become kind of befriended some of those creatures in '99 by pure accident. So, you know, you want me to go ahead and continue, or wait a bit, or
I'm sorry.
you want me to go ahead and continue where I was at, Dave?
No. We'll wait till we come back from our radio break.
Man. Sure.
Yeah, we got a few minute break here. We got about 4 minutes to go
Okay.
here.
That's fine. Just let me know when I'm back on. Yeah. It was definitely life changing.
Oh, I know the feeling, my man. I know the feeling all too well.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure you've experienced probably something yourself. You've been in the area you're in. So.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
I don't think I ever realized these things were. I never really thought about it at that time. These things were real. I think that was probably the most shocking part, because I'd never known anybody that'd seen one. And, I'd heard about them, in the Pacific Northwest, Washington, Oregon, California, British Columbia, that area. But I didn't know anybody that had ever seen one. So when you see one, you definitely know it.
Yeah. And I'm a firm believer. I don't know how you believe, but I'm a firm believer that they allow you to see them. They don't show you unless they want to show you.
100%. I've told you, how many times have I told people, you don't ever go out and find Bigfoot, they find you. And I truly believe that. I hear people all the time will contact me. My fiance, me and her talk about it all the time. It's very rarely a day goes by when I don't get at least one message, sometimes 3 or 4 a day. Hey, what do I need to do to see one of these creatures, or where do I go, or how do I do it? And it's really not a pattern like that. I mean, you have to. I think that they don't allow you to see them unless they want you to. Now,
I
that's
agree.
not saying you might not just catch a glimpse of one, but you're startled or whatever. But it's pretty rare the way it's happened for me, because I've had so many experiences. It's kind of different.
I would agree with you on that. I would.
Martin Groves and I talk about it all the time. He has a real similar thing with Dogman that I have with Bigfoot. We can go into our spot. I can tell him there's a Bigfoot there. I feel him. And he can do the same with a Dogman. I know it probably sounds crazy to some people, but it really is true.
Well, we got about 90 seconds before we get into it. I'm pumped right up about it.
Well, I appreciate it, Dave. Like I said, it's an honor being here.
Well, I'll tell you, I love interviewing researchers and scientists and all that, but my favorite interviews are from people who've had real encounters and tell stories just like what you're telling right now. Like, to me, that is the awesomeness of what we do. And it allows our listeners, especially on the radio side, who may not have the opportunity to get in the forest, but believe in this stuff or want to believe, it allows them the opportunity to actually have an understanding of what it's like to be close to one of these creatures. So thank you for being so candid. I mean, that's what it's all about, man.
Well, it's just, it's just what I lived. It's people ask me about my encounters. I call them experiences, because that's what they basically are. So everyone's different.
Quick question for you, because I was just doing some thinking. I don't know if we'll get to Dogman and the LBL tonight. I'd love to bring you on in October to talk about the LBL.
Sure, Dave. Love to come back on. Yeah. Love
Yeah,
to be.
Dirty Filth, can you get a date booked in October with Darrell about the LBL? Thank you, buddy.
So we'll be going in October to do some research, and Ron and Martin and I will.
I can do that, Dave. I forgot we're still in break, so I can swear.
Hell yes, you can. You got
Fridge.
Fridge, that's right. Thank you tonight to Cosmic Joe, Beverly, Deborah Rooney, Mike, and Cat Chaser for the great super chats. We very much appreciate the love and support. Here we go. Here we go in the second half hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. Thank you for joining us. My name is Dave Scott. We love bringing the weird, strange stories to you, and that's what we're doing a great job of tonight, so I hope you're enjoying. Hey, I want to remind all of you that if you miss portions of this show or others, you can check out our free archives by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. Bigfoot and Dogman researcher Darrell Denton is with us, and right before the break, he was talking about a harrowing encounter that he had with Sasquatch, where it literally trapped him up a tree while he was hunting. Yeah, if that isn't enough to give you the heebie-jeebies next time you go into the forest, I don't know what will. Darrell, thank you so much for being here. And right before the break, we had talked about the emotion and the fear that you had, wondering, is this going to be your last day on Earth? Are you going to be food for this, or is it going to rip you apart? Because it seemed pretty angry that it was in your area. What was going on internally in you at that time?
Dave, I tell you, it was, I've never, like I said, I don't scare easy. And I still go into woods at places a lot of people won't go. And I've never been that frightened in my life. I thought this thing was going to kill me. I really did. And it seemed like that it was in that frame of mind. It was the ugliest, meanest looking thing that I've still ever seen. One side of its mouth was kind of contortion, kind of a crooked. It's hard to explain, but I actually went out after this happened to me. I had nightmares and I couldn't sleep, and I didn't go into woods for about 7 years. And my second occurrence, I wasn't even in the woods hunting. I was fishing, but it was. I went looking to find something out about these things. There wasn't no podcasts at that time or radio shows that talked about this, or any groups like mine that I have where we could talk to people. And I went to the library and I found some pictures of these creatures. And quite frankly, I found a book that said the top 10 Bigfoot. And the second one was called Wood Booger. And that was exactly what I'd seen. The only difference, that picture had red eyes. The one I seen had black eyes. So I was shocked that there was really actual pictures of these things out there. So then I knew somebody else had seen them, not just me.
You were very close to this thing, within 50 feet of this.
Oh yeah,
you could see right down on it. Yeah, you could see the facial expressions. At what point did you think it noticed you in the tree?
Oh, it knew exactly where I was at when it came out of the cane thicket. When it jumped the creek, it looked right up in the tree and seen me and walked all the way over, looking at me to the limb where that drag rag I hung up the day before was. And it reached up and grabbed it. And that's how, I'm 6'5", and when I raise my arm all the way up, it's a little over 8 foot, and that's about where that limb was, where I tied that drag rag onto that end of that limb to let that scent go down that hollow to cover up my scent and hopefully to bring a buck deer in. And that thing stood to that limb. So it was 8 foot, a little bit more, or a tad less. It was a big creature, and it didn't look friendly. Still, I've been very fortunate or chosen that I've seen many of these creatures since then, and I've never ever seen another creature that looked like that. Another what my granddad called a wood booger. I've seen other Bigfoot type creatures, but they look nothing like that one.
Do you think it was warning you for being in the area because you were hunting its food, or do you think that it was just upset that you were in there at that same time?
I think you hit it on the head right there, Dave. I think it didn't like me there. I would probably messed up its hunt. That was its deer that it probably, fed on regularly or hunted regularly. And they let me know, you don't need to be in here. Don't come back. And that was its purpose. And it definitely worked. But one thing about it, over the years, Dave, I used to think, well, this thing could have killed me. But over the years, since I've had some other encounters and some other experiences, if it wanted to kill me, it could have. It just wanted to scare me bad enough to get me out of there and not come back. So that's my thought on that now.
It took you 7 years to get back in the forest.
Correct.
From that
go in the woods, to go in any woods.
What did you do? Why were you afraid about that? Tell me about the nightmares you were having, and then we'll lead into.
I would have nightmares where I'd fall asleep, and as soon as I fell asleep, I would wake up. I would see this same creature standing there looking at me, and it was trying to catch me. I would have nightmares about it running after me. I would have nightmares about it coming up the tree. Just all the fears that I'd lived in that particular few minutes that happened. Back in that day, I had what was called an old Iron Man sports watch. I don't know if you remember those, but
yes, I remember those.
They had like a little button on them that you could push, and it was called Indiglo, and it lit up. And you could actually push that little button, and almost like a flashlight as you were going in the woods. But the cool thing about it was it had a stopwatch on it. And anytime I went hunting, if I seen a deer coming out, I'd push that stopwatch button, and it would lock in the time the deer came out, so I would know about what time I needed to be in there for that deer to come out, or when that deer I'd seen come out. I'd try to be there before that time, because they usually follow a pattern. Well, this thing came out at 8:23 in the morning. That's when I pushed it. I thought it was a deer coming out, and I just reached down and pushed that button before I seen the creature. And I would have a reference when I needed to be back there when the deer was coming out. And, I probably watched this creature, 12 or 13 minutes, which sounds like a long time. And it was a long time, but it was really mad at me, and it just stared at me and growled at me for a bit before it let out the yell. And it let me know, do not come back. And I've never been back there since. Never went back and got my stand. I guess my binoculars are still in the tree. Whatever, my extra equipment. Never went back. And my grandfather since has passed, and I haven't got somebody else owns the land now. And I haven't really thought much about going back. I did think about going back a few years back just to see if it was still there and maybe bring back a memory of that day, but it's not a memory that I really care to think about, even though I've gotten more relaxed with it over the years.
7 years it took you to finally get that experience out of your head and find the the will to go back into the forest. What was that first time back in the forest like after all the nightmares and the fear that you had had?
Well, you know, I had a best friend at that time named Martin Groves, and I had my experience in November of '92. His experience was in April of '93, and Martin was my best friend at that time, and he and I really, that was the only person I could really talk about this to, because I brought up the fact to my friends when they had come back that day. I said, "Hey, you guys haven't seen anything in the woods?" And I told them, you know, "What are you talking about?" They call me Big D, and I'd say like a Bigfoot. No, we hadn't seen anything like that. You've been drinking too much. I said, "Oh, I hadn't had anything to drink," but you know, there really wasn't anybody to talk to about it. But Martin had had his encounter in '93. So, and he was a really close friend, and he and I got to talking about it. His, of course, was with a dog man, not a Bigfoot. But we would go to lunch and talk. I couldn't talk to anybody else because people would think you were crazy. At that time, I was elected official in my county, and Martin, of course, was a chief deputy sheriff. And, you know, he and I would talk about it. Without him, I really don't know what I would have done, because there's nobody else you can really talk to about it. Because, you know, you bring that up, they think you're crazy. Anybody does, you know, they don't believe in that type of stuff. So at that time, it wasn't as open as it is now. It's a lot more open now than people will at least listen to you, or don't think you've just lost your rocker here, you know, and don't make it up this kind of story, or thinking you've seen something you didn't see. But, you know, when I went back into the woods the second time, I wasn't hunting. I went down a trail that I'd fished at for years, but I hadn't been there in quite a few years. That particular trail was probably about 200 yards, real rural area down next to the Cumberland River in Tennessee there, that I fished at. And I went in there, and that was my second occurrence there. It was actually 2 or 3 weeks later before I realized what I was dealing with. But I wasn't there looking for these creatures. I didn't care to ever run into another one. I just went in there fishing, and that's how it all started, Dave. That's what got me back into the woods, just going for a regular crappie fishing in the February of 1999 on the river.
Well, let's get into that. I mean, did you have the same fear seeing the second creature? Like, I'm sure you would have froze wondering, "Uh-oh, is this the nightmare part 2?"
Well, you know, the thing about that was when I first went in there, now I'd fished here for years. I hadn't been there in a while, and it was a very rural, remote area. And the last time I was there was with a couple of buddies that I went to high school with. We would go there and fish. It was a pretty good little drive, and it was in a really rural area off next to the river that nobody really knew how to get to. There was an old plant there that you could park behind, and it had a gate. And one of those guys that I went to school with, his uncle had worked there, so that's how they knew to fish there. But it was a really good fishing spot. And what happened was I went down there to go what we call crappie fishing. Some people call them crappie or crappie, and we always done good there in the early spring, February. You know, it's still cold in February in Tennessee. Sometimes there's snow on the ground. Sometimes it's a little warm, and you know, it gets warm and cold that time of year. It's trying to become spring. But I just went in there to go fishing, and you walk about 200 yards back in there, and then there's like a creek that runs out into the Cumberland River, which is a big river in Tennessee, and there's a sandbar that goes down next to it that you can walk out on to about midway in the river when the water's not up. Now, when the water's up, it's over that sandbar. But I went down there to fish, and I got set up and started fishing, and I went down that bank in front of me. It's a bank probably 10 foot that's got tree roots and everything sticking out. Where you walk down that bank onto that sandbar, and you don't get your line all tangled around those roots, and when you reel your fish in. And that's what I was doing. I caught a couple of fish and went back to where I was setting, and had a 5-gallon bucket there that I carried my stuff in with a minute bucket, separate styrofoam minute bucket, and I went back to get a minnow to put on my hook, and the minnow bucket was gone. I couldn't figure out where the minnow bucket went. I looked around for it, looked to see if if it blew down in the river somehow, or it wasn't really windy or anything. But anyway, I'd lost my minnow bucket. I had no minnows, and I'd looked around everywhere, and it was real thick right there. It was a game trail that ran through there, and it went down into some what we call kudzu, which is real thick like vines, and they grow down the riverbank, and they're real thick. And that game trail ran right into the middle of those, and you couldn't really you could get through there, but you had to get down on your knees almost to crawl through there till the game trail opened back up on the other side of it. And I couldn't find my minnow bucket. So I had to pack up and leave. I couldn't figure out what happened to it. And long story short, I was kind of puzzled what had happened to my minnow bucket. So I went on back and went to my car and went on home and went back the next weekend, brought another minnow bucket, did the same thing all over again. This particular day, the water was up and it was over the sandbar, and it was a little windy. It had been raining. It was a cold day when it was in the low 40s. It was cool. And I'd set up and I was fishing, same thing again. I went back after I caught a couple of fish, and my minnow bucket was gone one more time. And I couldn't figure out, what is going on here with these minnow buckets. So I started thinking somebody's in here playing a joke on me or something. They're taking my minnow bucket. And I didn't know what was going on with that, and kind of weirded out by it. So once again, I packed up and went on back to the house, and I think it was actually probably a couple weekends instead of another weekend when I went back. But this time I put a little rope around the new minnow bucket, the metal handle on it. I tied a rope around it, a little small rope, and it was probably 15 or 20 foot long. And I went in with my minnows, and I tied the rope around the tree that my bucket was against, and it was tied to the handle of the minnow bucket. I thought, well, if somebody's in here and they're going to steal my minnow bucket, I'm going to catch them before they steal it. And I even brought my shotgun with me that time. I didn't lean against the tree because I didn't know if I was dealing with somebody that was trying to steal from me or harm me or what was going on. And I felt pretty comfortable there. I never had any problems with anybody. But so again, I'm fishing, and it's just a normal day. The sandbar's there. It's real cold. Not real cold, but it's in the 30s and a little windy that morning. And I'm fishing, and I went down and put a fish on a stringer, same place next to the sandbar, and came back up, and I was going to put a minnow again on my hook and try to fish again. And my minnow bucket this time was pulled over to that little game trail that went through that kudzu. It was real thick in there. You couldn't see in there real good. I noticed the rope was stretched from the tree over to there, and I could look under there and I could see the minnow bucket sitting there. And I thought, well, this is what's happening to my minnow bucket. Somebody's over in here and they're stealing my minnow bucket. So, I got my shotgun and I kind of got down on my knees a little bit and looked up in there and went over. It was so low, you had to bend over really low. And I went over to get my minnow bucket. It was tied, of course, to the tree and to the handle. And when I went to get it, I noticed the top was off. The water was sloshed out, and it's real muddy right in there anyway, where that game trail was. And there was only one minnow in my minnow bucket, and there was, 4 or 5 dozen in there before whatever got my minnow bucket. I'm still thinking it's a person, and I look next to this minnow bucket, and over to the right in the kudzu, a little further in, I see another minnow bucket laying on the ground. And up to the straight ahead, up over to the left, a little further in, I see another minnow bucket. Well, I'm immediately thinking, there's the 2 minnow buckets that I'm missing. Something or somebody is in here stealing my minnow buckets. So, I'm thinking it's kind of strange why somebody would steal the minnows out of your bucket and take your bucket. So, next to that bucket where the water had sloshed out, I noticed a footprint. And it looked like a barefoot person's footprint next to the bucket.
Oh, big.
kind of startled me. You know, I seen that footprint and I thought, well, who in the world will be down here in the wintertime, barefooted, walking up and down the riverbank? And it wasn't a real large print. It wasn't, you know, I don't know, probably maybe 9 or 10 inches long, but it was definitely a human looking footprint. You could see the toes, a perfectly footprint. And I thought, well, there's some kid in here stealing my mini bucket. Here's what's going on. And I felt kind of weird. So I actually got the mini bucket. I went and pulled it back next to the tree. I act like I was rigging up and I threw my line out and I sat next to that tree with my shotgun next to me on the side to the right of me. And I'm sitting on the bucket acting like I'm fishing. I'm kind of looking out of my corner of my left eye to see where this person's at. And I've got my shotgun and it was probably a couple of hours and I'd just about given up thinking, well, whoever it was has run off. They're not going to come back. And, you know, and then about that time I seen this creature. It was holding on to a little tree about that big around, had a hand on it, and it was leaning down looking at me. And I couldn't see the whole body of it, but I could see the head and part of the shoulder as it was bent down in the pads there, and it was looking at me. And when I would look, it would go sway back in where I couldn't see it. And I immediately thought, this is not a person. This is another one of these creatures. And I kind of panicked. I thought, I don't want to deal with these creatures. This one don't look like the other one, but it's another one of these creatures. And I was kind of frightened. And when I seen what it was, and, you know, it was looking at me down like that, I got my gun, my gear, and everything, and I got out of there. And I didn't want nothing to do with any more of these Bigfoot. I'd already had my fill of them. And got all my stuff, went straight to my truck, loaded it up, and left. Well, it kind of stayed on my mind that whole day. The next day, it was on my mind constantly. You know, I've got to go back. Something about it, I wanted to go back because it didn't seem to want to harm me. And at the same time, I kind of wanted to know more about it for some reason. I can't really give you a reason why I did. It did look different than the other one. Nothing like that. It looked more like more of the patty looking type. It was a regular looking, it didn't look like the wood booger type I'd seen the first time. And so I thought about it all that week. And the next weekend, I went down there, carried my gun, set up like I was fishing. Even though I wasn't fishing, I was trying to see the creature again. And I set my mini bucket out there, and after an hour or so, I seen it again. It was looking at me. It's probably maybe 70 feet from me, roughly. It would bend down and look at me. And as soon as I would look at it, it would bend its head back up and hide. And I watched it for quite a bit. It would look at me and I'd look at it. Then it would go back and I'd look at it. And that went on all day and almost dark. And then I seen another one. There was another one behind this one. They were both about the same size. They weren't full grown. 5.5 foot tall. The very first one that was looking at me after I got to see the body a lot better was a female. The one behind her, I couldn't tell, but they were both black, and it was about the same size. It was looking around that one's shoulder at me, and it would go up. And I watched these things for quite a while, and I felt I didn't feel real fearful of them. They didn't try to harm me, or they didn't seem aggressive like the first one. And I knew there was probably more because if there's younger ones, there's got to be bigger ones. You know, this went on for, you know, I started thinking about them all the time. And I actually started going down there regularly. And I was going down there every day or every other day at the longest. I would drive down. And I started taking them. I started watching them. And they'd watch me. And they got a little braver. And I got a little braver. And
Darrell, hold that thought because we are going to go to break here at the top of the hour.
Sure.
Darrell Denton getting a relationship going with a Bigfoot clan. He's starting to get into the story. We're going to continue it over after the break here. I got to hear this because this is exactly what I'm trying to do in my own Sasquatch spot. So I'm taking notes here. I hope you are too if you live in a Sasquatch area. Spaced Out Radio with Darrell Denton as our guest returns right after this. This is Spaced Out Radio with host Dave Scott.
Well,
All right,
Dave,
Darrell, we got about 6 minutes here.
All right.
Dirty Filth, we're going to turn it over to you, my man.
Hello, Dave. Hello, Darrell.
Hey, Dirty Phil. How you doing, buddy?
Oh, not bad. Let me just turn this down a little bit here. There we go. Well, we're still on break, so if you need to go for a smoke or a whiz or let the dog out or water the werewolf or something, this is the time.
I'm good. I got some water here. I'm in good shape. Thank you, though.
Excellent. So I'm drawing. I got a ongoing cartoon about my cats and their space. Well, it's ongoing as of right now, but they're space aliens. They're the space sprogs. And there's four different ones. There's the gargoyle, blob, whiskey, and gremlin. And they're basically just named after my cats and everything.
Hey, that's a great job you're doing there, Dirty Phil. That really is a great job. Great job.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate that. Just about all done here.
Very good artwork, though.
Yeah, it looks pretty sloppy and blobbly all over the place in the beginning, but eventually in the end, it actually turns out pretty good. Let's get my old... Whoop. Just knock over 10,000 things. Get the old display case here. Look at that. There's the space sprogs.
That's really cool.
We'll make it look nice. Look at that.
Great job.
It's very important to make it look nice.
How many do you really have these 4 cats yourself?
I do, and they're all named.
Okay.
So that's them. That's basically their personalities too.
That's cool.
So it works out. Usually Blob ends up coming and sitting up on the table, but she's downstairs right now, piled on top of her mom. So.
Now, are you up in Canada like Phil is, like Dave is?
Yeah, I live. Dave lives in BC. I live in Alberta, which is basically.
Okay.
I think it's over Montana. I think it's directly south of Alberta.
I was actually there last year. I was up there with my team. We went into Montana and camped up there right on the line. Last June we were up that way. A year ago, not this June, but we were out at the edge of Montana and Canada there. So we were actually doing some research up there.
That's it's all badlandy and everything down there, isn't it?
You know, the worst thing that happened to me, I never seen any Bigfoot there or Sasquatch, but all we seen was grizzly bears.
Yeah, those can be pretty rowdy.
And they weren't real. It was a little nerve-wracking because you'd sit out around the fire next to the camper at night, and a big grizzly would just walk right up.
Did you see any weird UFOs or anything?
I didn't see anything out of the weirdness, just bears. We were there 3 days, and I'd heard some Bigfoot noises up in that area, but I didn't see any of them. I know for sure I heard a couple of whoops and a couple of tree knocks, but we basically left because there were so many bears. We had like 3 of them around our camper that second night, and literally everybody was afraid to even go out to take a whiz because of the bears.
Yeah, I can't really blame you on that.
These things were huge.
There was I believe there's a big, seems like the boss or something. And he's a grizzly bear in either Banff or Jasper in Alberta.
Okay.
And it's kind of like a celebrity type thing.
Well,
I can't actually remember the entire story. I just remembered a little bit about that now. I'll have to look it up, but
sure.
Yeah, when I find out, I'll tell you.
All right, appreciate it. Let me know when we're back on, because I don't know what our time frame is.
Oh, I think it's about, I think maybe got like 20 seconds or something.
Okay,
maybe. No, wait. Dave's not back yet. I don't think he'll leave us hanging. No, there he is. Sneaking in all Davely. Hi, Dave.
Oh, always. Here.
Look, Dave, it's the Space Brogs.
I love it. Love it.
Very good job.
Have a good night, everybody.
Good night, Dirty Filth. We love Dirty Filth down here. We got about 40 seconds to go here before we go to break. Come out of break, that is. We'll say good night to Dirty Filth. And who else has joined us here? And let's scroll on down. Michael C., how you doing? Menial Scientist, been a while. Good to have you here. Toklan, nice to see you. Thank you to Deborah Rooney ×2, Cat Chaser, Mike, Beverly, and Joe for the super chats. Here we go with the second hour, everybody. Hour number 2 of Spaced Out Radio is now underway. My name is Dave Scott. We're talking Bigfoot tonight with Darrell Denton. We're going to bring him back momentarily because his story is incredible. Hey, I want to say hello to everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on every major podcast network. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. DL8. DL8 is your password. Use it wisely, Space Travelers, as the Clam sets a password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. All right, Darrell Denton continues on with us tonight about how he was able to, how can we put it, build a relationship with a Sasquatch clan. Darrell, this sounds so far-fetched. It really does sound far-fetched. But these creatures, I think, are quite habitual. They are quite curious. And if you find a good clan, they're going to want to know you as much as you want to know them. It takes time, but it just seems like maybe not build a friendship per se, but almost like a trust. They trust you in their area. Take us through what happened to you.
Well, I have no doubt about that, Dave. You're exactly right. They've got to have a special feeling toward you, and I know 100% they do. They are aware of your heart. I truly believe that. They know what your intentions are. If you have a bad intention, I know that now from being around, been very, I guess, blessed to be around as many of them as I have over the years. But this particular clan was different than any I've ever been around, and I became very close to this clan. Starting over where I left off, I started going in there. It was a pretty good little drive, but I was going every day or every other day. I never went past every other day. I would go in and stay as long as I could. Of course, I was trying to work at the same time. Sometimes I would stay a little longer than I did other times. But I started not bringing fishing equipment. I would just walk in and just carry my bucket, and I would sit down next to the tree, and I would look at these two creatures, and they would look at me, and they got a little more friendly, and they started showing themselves a little better. I could see their bodies fairly well. They would stand up, or they'd move around, or they were curious about me as much as I was about them. But unlike the first one I'd seen, these creatures were not aggressive at all. They were more friendly. For some reason, they knew my intention. I wasn't there to harm them. I was trying to learn about them and trying to be their friend. I really didn't know what else to do but that. But this went on for quite a while. I started bringing them. I'd never heard of gifting. I've heard of it now. A lot of people do that, and I don't suggest everybody gift these creatures gifts. Some of these creatures are different. There are many different types that I've found out in my own experiences. I do think there are different types. I think this particular type, well, I know it was. They're what I call the forest people. They're more friendly. They don't want to harm you as long as you don't try to harm them or their family. They're a little different than some of the other Bigfoot or Sasquatch, and I've been around some that are very aggressive, and I do think some of those might hurt you or harm you. These weren't like that unless you were intent to harm them. I never had any fear from these two creatures. I don't think they feared me. I started bringing them different type of foods. I really didn't know what they like to eat. I brought just about everything you could think of. I did find out their favorite food is cantaloupe. This particular clan, that was their favorite food. They like cantaloupe. They don't want it cut up. They just want the whole melon. They like a lot of us, including myself. They do love cooked bacon. They love that.
That doesn't surprise me.
Right, they did like that. They don't want it thrown on the ground. They want it on a plate or nicely and pushed back toward the area they're in. Then they'll come out and get it, and you can actually watch them eat it. I found out that, and their other favorite thing, I probably brought just about everything you could think of. They love a whole loaf of bread with a tie on it. You leave the whole loaf there. They'll take the bread and whatever they do with it with the other clan members, and then they'll bring the wrapper back with a tie on it and leave it for you in the spot. But I actually made a small box, and I put it in the tree that I sat under. It had the fork in it, and I put that box up there, and I nailed it into the tree where I could put their gifts in when I'd leave them when I left. And they would come out sometime while I was gone and get them and take them in. But I found out what they liked and what they wouldn't eat, and then I started bringing them regular gifts. I'd bring them some type of toys or whatever and see what they liked and what they didn't like. They started showing themselves more to me. I tried my best to communicate with them. I would tell them over and over what my name was. My name, and I speak a little bit of Lakota Sioux. That's American Indian. And from my family member that was Lakota Sioux. But they knew that language. They knew the words. I would get their attention when I'd say the word. And we use the word Chayutaka, which means great elder of the forest, which that's what the Lakota Sioux call the Bigfoot, which means keeper of the forest. And I used whatever I could to try to communicate with them. And I told them my name over and over. When I would go in from my truck, I would be walking down the trail, and I would start, "Hey, I'm here to visit you." I would start talking before I got there. And they knew I was coming, and I could hear them. They were excited. And they would bring me gifts. The coolest gift I ever got from them, they brought me a half-gallon milk carton that it looked like it had been in the river for quite a while. It was originally red and white, but it was pink and white where it faded out. and they put sticks through it, pointed sticks, and 2 sticks stuck out of all 4 sides of the box, and they formed an X. And that was these creatures' marker for their family. They had huge X's down the trail, like trees together, and they would put X's next to the box, next to the tree where I sat. I learned that was apparently their family marker, was that X. And just a lot of learn and a lot of trial and error things to try to get to know these creatures. And I continued to tell them, my name is Darrell, please tell me your name. And they just looked at me and didn't say anything. But I continued to do that for a long time. And one day I brought them some plastic whistles in, little plastic whistles like you give at a birthday party for little children. They have a little black string on them. I bought a little pack of those, and I think there was 8 or 10 of them in there. And before I left, I just hung them on the tree limbs right there, right around where they were at. And when I came back in a day later, I heard the whistle blowing. These creatures were blowing whistles straight ahead, across the river, back to the left. They would blow those whistles, and I would say, hey, I'm here, and they would start blowing those whistles to let me know they were there. And then I realized, well, these creatures are intelligent. You know, they're not, to know how to do that, you know, that's pretty smart. And I found out their favorite food they liked the most was bread products, and I would bring them jelly-filled donuts. They loved those. And I would put them on a little plate, and I'd leave them in the box, or I'd push them over next to the kazoo, and I'd give them time to reach out and get it. And, you know, this went on for, oh my gosh, that was 99. It was a good 3.5 years. I was close friends to these creatures. I was trying my best to learn more about them and trying to communicate. I was trying to communicate with them so much. They would leave me little sticks, different broken sticks and stuff on the ground where I would sit, and I never knew the entire meaning to all of those, but they left me gifts from themselves. They left me that milk carton. They left me certain rocks, and I just gave my fiance a rock that the female had gave me that I've carried a long time. I got it out the other day, and it's a really nice rock. And I started still trying to communicate with them. And, you know, I would go in there, and it was even in the summertime, I would go in there, and I started going in there, and I'd build a little fire, and I'd camp out in there. And they were, you know, 70, 80 feet from me, and they'd look around the trees and watch me. And finally, there was a third one that I started seeing, and he was a tall male, about 7 foot tall. He was kind of the watcher over the other 2. And he would look out at me, and there was other ones in there. I could hear them, but I didn't get to see them as well. I could just see pieces of them as they move around. But the only 3 that I ever seen was the female, the one behind her, which was about the same size, that was a male, and then the one behind them that kind of watched them. He was, like I said, about 7 foot tall, and he kind of watched over them. He was a male. And I still, all this time, had tried to communicate with them. I'd leave them different things, hoping I could get some words. And I did get some noises out of them, different things. And one day I was in there, and I hadn't been in there in a day or 2. I had to work, and very rare when I wasn't there every day or every other day. And when I was walking in, I could hear them blowing the whistles. They were excited that I was there. And when I'd leave, I'd go, bye, I'll see you guys, see you later, bye. And then they started mocking me. They would go, bye, bye. You could hear 2 or 3 different ones saying that. And I realized, you know, I'm gaining some ground on them, but it was a very slow process. I could never get exactly what I wanted. I wanted to communicate with them. I didn't know how. And I was there one day with some jelly-filled donuts, and I just opened the box, and I put one on the plate, and I set it over next to the kazoo there, and I went back and sat on my bucket, and I said, I sure wish y'all would tell me your name. My name is Darrell. And all of a sudden I hear Aliatha.
Oh, my.
I was absolutely shocked to death. I said, what? What? I said, your name is Aletha? And the female, by that time, she was probably a little closer to 6 foot, but she'd grown. Her name was Aletha. And I tried my best to communicate with the other one behind her, and he never would tell me anything or make any verbal language that I could understand, or never could get him to. He would make some different noises, but not anything that I understood what it was.
Right.
They have their own language. They would kind of communicate with each other. I could hear them do that, but not regularly, just occasionally. The one in the very back,
Right.
I asked him, what is your name? My name is Darrell. Tell me your name. And he goes, Tobias. There's a real loud Tobias.
Let me ask you something here. How do you think they understood English?
I don't have any idea, but they knew English. They knew my Lakota Sioux words because they would listen and look at me when I'd say them. And I asked them, I said, well, can you tell me where you come from? I'd ask them, I don't know how many times, where did you come from? How did you get here? Finally, one day I asked them, I said, can you tell me where you come from? And I said, did you come from, you lived here all your life? Did you come from the heavens? Did you come from the sky? And they went. I said, you came from the heavens. You came from another galaxy.
Oh, my.
Yeah. I got 2 words out of those creatures in 3.5 years, and it was Aletha, the female, and Tobias, the large male. Never got anything else out of them but regular, their words, not my words. But
did you, when you started communication with them, how far away were you from them? And how many weeks, days did it take to finally get that?
The first words, the only words I got out of them, which was Tobias and Aletha, that was starting toward the end of my 3rd year. And I'd ask them every day, just about, or every other day when I went in there, to tell me their names or how can I communicate with you. And they would do cool things. They'd give me a little stick that was broken, and I didn't understand the meaning of it, but it was just really trying to figure out how to communicate with them. And they would leave sticks and little things drawn in the dirt, but I didn't understand what that meant, and they wouldn't talk to me. But I was pretty amazed when I heard Aletha and Tobias, and that was it. Never got any other word, English word out of them. I tried, but I become real close to them. I actually camped out in there at night next to that tree. I didn't go in with them, but they were over there, and I could see them looking over the weeds and through the kudzu at me at night. And I could hear other ones in there. There were some larger ones in there. I don't know how many was in the clan. I never found out, but it was quite a few in there. I only seen 3 of them. I seen parts of other ones looking at me, but I couldn't tell how big they were, or sometimes I'd see a shoulder or an arm or whatever, but and I didn't want to go in, and the closest I ever got was to Aletha. She was definitely the closest one to me. She trusted me, and she actually touched my shoe. I had my foot out, and she touched my shoe, and she gave me the rock, put the rock down in front of my shoe, but that was as close as I really got to them. And I was only her. The other ones, the bigger one behind the 2, did not want them getting closer to me. He was kind of watching over them. And when they would do something, get a little close, he would make a noise and they'd back up a little bit. So they had their language and they knew what he was telling them. I don't know if he was a brother or what he was to them, but he was definitely the watcher for them. The weird thing about it was I guess it was it was years after I had lost the family there, that I was I had a friend, Michael Patterson. And I'm not talking about Mike Patterson from Canada. I'm talking about Michael Patterson, a different guy. He and I just started the first Bigfoot group, I think. I don't think there was any other Bigfoot group. That was in 2014 or 15. We had just started a group on Facebook and didn't have very many members. There still at that time weren't many people on there about that. But he had told me, he said, you need to go look at this guy named Dr. Matthew Johnson. He's had a lot of the same experiences you have. And I said, who? I never heard of the guy. And he said, well, go look at, it's called The Great Reveal 1, 2, 3. I think there was 4 CDs. And I've actually become pretty good friends with Dr. J or Matthew Johnson since then. I didn't know him. I never heard of him. He said, but he's had kind of the same experience you have with these creatures. You need to check it out because somebody had told Michael about him. And I went and watched this Great Reveal, and I was shocked. I was having, it seemed to be the same type of Bigfoot, and he called them the Xanu, which was the X symbol that these on the river had showed me. That was their family sign, and he was talking about the X symbols out in Washington or Oregon where he lived. And I listened to that tape, and I was kind of blown away. And he called them the Xanu. He had a lot better luck communicating with them than I had by his story. And I listened to several of his. I didn't have all the experiences he did, but I had a lot of the same similar things with this type of creature. And I call these the forest people because they're different than any of the other ones I've ever seen. They were never aggressive. Of course, I never gave them a reason to be aggressive. I was kind and gentle and friendly with them, and they trusted me, and I trusted them. And I did bring a friend in there one time, and they didn't like that very much. And my friend was so scared, he ran all the way back to the truck and told me to take him home. He didn't want to ever go back. So, but anyway, they're kind of particular on who you bring in or what you do. But I was very close to that family, and I stayed close to them for nearly 4 years, and I probably would still be close to them. And who knows where I would have gotten if I could have stayed with them longer. I was gaining a lot of ground with them. It just took a long time to do it, or maybe I wasn't quite good enough to know how to do it. But I only did it the only way I knew how. And but then I had to work a couple of. For the first time ever, it was about 3 weeks before I got back down there. And I'd never been gone that long. And the whole time I was worried about them being upset at me because I'd had to work and I couldn't get down there. And I was working a lot of hours and just had a baby. My wife at that time just had a baby, I believe. She wasn't very old. And I was working a lot. And I got down there and it was 3 weeks or maybe a little longer when I had got down. When I went in to the trail, I was yelling, hey, I'm here to see you. And normally when I went in, they would start blowing those whistles. And because nobody ever went fishing back there but me. My couple buddies that knew about it, they went back there, but they didn't go anymore. And it was kind of concealed in a very remote area that nobody went back there but me. And when I was going in the trail, I noticed a lot of the trees were marked up. And when I got to just a little ways from it, they had leveled all of that back there. The trees were gone. The kazoo was gone. They had bulldozers and backhoes back there and cleared all that off. And it was actually staked out with these stakes with little ribbons on them like they were about to build something back there. And I was shocked because I couldn't find the creatures.
Right.
And I was yelling for them and everything else, and I've never seen them since. And I went back further back in there for 2 or 3 months. I would go back in there as far as a mile or so, and I never seen them again.
Let me ask you, we only got about 25 seconds left before we got to go to break. Did you ever invite other people in there with you while these experiences were happening for them to experience as well?
I only invited one person, one good, really close friend of mine. I invited him, and he went in with me. And like I said, he was so freaked
Okay.
out when he seen these creatures. He only seen the
Hold that
female.
thought. Hold that thought. We're going to break here. Darrell Denton for another 30 minutes on Spaced Out Radio. You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with your host, Dave Scott. This is flying on by, man.
I'll get it for you.
My fiance's getting it for me. All right, buddy.
Okay. Yeah, this is flying on by, dude.
So cool.
It's been I haven't told this story to a lot of people. I've showed it to a few people, but just certain few. But it was probably the most heartbreaking, realistic thing that I've been involved with those creatures, because as crazy as it sounds, they became like my family to me. Thank you, honey. They really did. I mean, I was very close to them, especially Aletha. And Tobias, he was friendly, but not like Aletha was like. I mean, she was friendly with me. I mean, she was like a close friend. I mean, I could go in there, and she was very comfortable with me. She would make me something all the time, or she'd put something in the box up there, or bring me a catfish, or it'd be something laying there when I got there that normally that she or one of the other ones would give me for a gift, some type of vines twisted together like a bracelet, or
yes.
It was pretty shocking when I went in there and they had graded that off and put those stakes up. So I don't know if they seen the creatures and the creatures ran off, or that when they seen those creatures, they called, game and fish or the police in, and they maybe killed them. I don't know what happened to them. But it still bothers me. I've been in there quite a few times, even over the years, and walked way back. Even went across the other side of the river, got a boat, and I hadn't seen anything though. No tracks. They knew my voice. I don't know what happened to them. I really do think that something bad happened to them. I really do.
Oh, that's terrible.
But they can definitely speak. Those kind could anyway. I don't know. That's the only ones that ever had to speak to me. So, and that took a lot of time just to get 2 words out of them. So I don't know if they were holding back or what, but I tried to get other communication from them. And like I said, they would say something in their own words or their own language that I didn't understand, but never got any other words. I don't know if they was a trust issue there, or they just didn't want to communicate with me. I do believe they came from another galaxy, because I don't understand why they would lie to me about it. But maybe they did. But that's my belief, that they came from another galaxy. I don't know. And this sounds pretty crazy, but it happened. It was amazing. I wish I could have learned more from them.
I bet.
Never had that experience with. We had another clan that we befriended in 2017 in Cheatham County. Billy Howell and I, and Charlie Raymond went down. He was back in those days. Darrell Yarbrough, the team I had at that time, and never heard any words out of them at all. And they weren't friendly like this clan. Nowhere near as friendly. And they were all the time fighting in the woods. You'd hear them arguing with each other. The female and the baby were probably the friendliest of all of them. But that was in Cheatham County, Tennessee. And Billy Howell's still going down there. My old partner, Darry, has since passed away. Darrell Yarbrough, one of my best close friends at that time.
Mm-hmm.
But they still see him down there. Yeah. David that lives there, he's had quite a few crazy things happen. they tore his garage door off back last year.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, all those creatures, I don't know everything. I only know what I've experienced myself, but all these creatures aren't friendly. They're not. They're not all. But, they're like people. There's good ones and bad ones.
Yeah, I would totally agree with that. Totally agree with that.
And I don't know how many different types there are, but I can tell you this much: that I believe I've seen 3 or 4 different types. Is what I believe I've seen. The first one being the wood booger, and only going by the pictures I was telling you about. The type 2 was the wood booger. The type 3 and 4 are more looking like the patty type. That type.
Right.
That's the type that I. So.
Hold on right there, Darrell, because we're going to come back here in
go ahead.
a few seconds. Thank you to Deb ×4, Cosmic Joe, Beverly, Mike, and Cat Chaser for the super chats. Greatly appreciate the love, everybody. Oh, little Timmy Senor, good to see you. And thank you for the super chat. Thank you, Human Carl. And thank you again, Debster. Much love, everybody. All right, we passed the halfway point of Spaced Out Radio tonight. Good to have you with us. My name is Dave Scott. We always love having the woo for you. Reminder to all of you that if you missed portions of this show or others, you can check out our free archives by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the Newswire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. We got Darrell Denton until the top of the hour. What's it like to make friends with a clan of Sasquatch and live to tell about it? Darrell, thank you so much for being here. This has been incredible tonight.
Oh, sure, Dave. Thanks for having me. It's always an honor. I'm honored to be here with you, buddy.
Now, this experience with this clan was so much different than your first encounter. Did it really give you any type of trust or thought that maybe, just maybe, these creatures do want to communicate with us?
Dave, I don't think I would have ever got over the very first encounter because it kept me out of the woods for 7 years or a little longer. I didn't even want to be around in the woods at all. But after I befriended this family or clan of Bigfoot, I only really knew 3 of them, but it changed my whole theory about it. These were, of course, completely different looking than the first one I had seen in my first experience, but they were friendly. They were not aggressive. They're very intelligent, super intelligent. They seem to even know sometimes what you're thinking or what you're about to say before you even say it. And they have an ability that is not like human. They're smart, or sometimes more as intelligent as we are, or maybe even more than some people, but after what I experienced with them, it was a whole different meaning of what these creatures are. I believe they're a type of people. This particular clan that I was with are an ancient type of people. I know for a fact they're not an ape or a monkey. Not what I witnessed. These were just as intelligent as we were. And, they were peekers and lookers and watchers because they have to be. Over the years, a lot of people tried to harm their families or do something to them. So, they've learned a lot of abilities that we haven't by being in the wilderness and living that way. But it definitely changed my theory. I don't think I would have never felt like I do now. I don't fear them like I did after my first encounter.
No, I totally get that. But you also then found another clan that you built a relationship with.
Right. I've had, I've been really fortunate and, with that, but I actually have run into several different individual creatures and land between the lakes, up next to Del Hollow Lake, and a lot of different areas that I've seen to somehow draw these creatures. I don't know. I can't explain it really. I don't really understand it myself, but I have an ability with them that apparently some people don't. I don't really know how it works. I wish I could answer that, but the clan you're talking about was in 2018, and that was I was actually a high school friend had called a buddy of mine up, Billy, and said, "Hey, this particular friend is on the road a lot. He drives a tractor trailer. He runs from Nashville to New York every day. I mean, every week. He's gone about 5 days, and his girlfriend stayed there in the house, in a very rural area of Cheatham County, Tennessee. And she stayed in the house, with the dogs by herself till he got home on the weekend. And they called up and my friend Billy said, "Hey, Dave's having some problems down at his house. He's got something that's scaring his girlfriend to death. And he wanted to know if we would go down and see what's going on down there." And I had no idea we were going down to look at, that there was some type of Bigfoot. I didn't know what it was, but went down there. And after a couple weekends down there doing some scouting and walking around and seeing the tracks of where these things, this one thing was looking through the window and scaring her to death. And we realized real quick that we knew what it was. There was some type of Bigfoot creature. And, we started going down there regularly. Not like I did on the last ones. I went down there every other day. I was down there mainly on the weekends because I didn't have time to do that anymore. Plus, on top of the fact, I was just basically there trying to help out a friend. He wanted to just try to keep them away from the house to keep her from being scared to death. And we realized she was putting vegetables and different things up on the deck, and that's what these things were doing. They were coming to get the food, and they were looking in the window and scared her to death. And she would put any type of scraps out from dinner, and they'd come get those too. So after she quit doing that, and we put some lights around the house, motion lights, and a few game cameras, that definitely will keep them away. They don't want to be around any of those. And but we got to going back behind his garage, back in the woods there where they were at, and we started having a lot of experiences back there with the creatures, and they were nowhere nearly as friendly as my second encounter. They were nothing like those. These were nowhere near that kind of friendly. They were real distant. Billy seen the female and the baby more than we did any of the other ones. We could hear them in the woods, like they were fighting. But I never became real close to any of those. I seen the juvenile myself several times of the female, and one of the large males. We had a gifting area, and we would go there in the night, and we would set up, I don't know, 50 or 60 feet from each other and watch them come into the gifting area. And I really never established a really relationship with them like I did on my second encounter. But kept going down there more and more and having more sightings and more experiences, and some things that we witnessed, coyotes running down a deer, and one of them running out and picking up the deer and running back in the woods from a distance with a FLIR. So did a lot of owl calls and that type of stuff when they were coming in, but never any type of relationship like I had with the second one. The weirdest thing that happened down there, this probably had went on for a couple of years, almost a couple of years. We started going down there in 18, and we didn't go regularly like I did with the second family that I had, but Billy would go more than I would. But I would go down there at least once every weekend, sometimes both nights. And we were trying to friend them, but they didn't seem to be as friendly as I'd like them to be. And we were down there one night, and I was sitting behind a tree, and Billy was to the left of me, and we had this. It looked like maybe 100 yards away from this hillside. It looked like a light bulb coming down through the woods, a light bulb on the ground. I'd never seen anything like that. And it was just walking on the ground. It was coming closer and closer, and I'm behind this tree, and this thing looked just like a light bulb walking on the ground, and it gets 2 or 3 feet from my leg, and I don't know what this thing is. And Billy's to the left, and he hits a big spotlight he's got and lights up, and it's an opossum. This opossum, I mean, it was a light bulb. It looked like a glowing light bulb on the ground, and when he hit the light, it looked at me, it opened its mouth and hissed and walked off in a natural form like a possum. And we watched it go back up the hillside in the dark. We can see the silhouette of it. I don't know how that happened. I know that it was very strange to me too. And we was watching that, and we were felt really strange, how that could even happen. And he told me, he goes, that is really weird. And he had moved up closer to me. And then maybe about 10 minutes, 15 minutes later, we seen these huge orbs, 2 huge orbs about the size of beach balls. They come down somewhere through the trees, and they're up in the same area that we watched that possum or that light bulb come from. And they're hovering off the ground maybe about a foot or 2, and they're about the size of beach balls. They're pulsating, kind of red, orange, and pink as the colors inside of it. And about that time, Billy his phone starts ringing, and the lady back at the house, she said, these creatures are here, come back here. She's scared to death. They're back there looking in her windows. So we run down this trail that goes back in there to the house. And about that time, I got hit with some kind of infrasound or zap or something. I felt really sick at my stomach. I got to my vehicle. The alarm is going off on my truck. The alarm is going off on Billy's truck. And Dave had just come home, and his truck was behind me, and his alarm was going. All these 3 alarms are going off on the trucks, and they are just blaring. And we get there, and I'm feeling really sick, and I don't know what's happened to me, but I had a headache, and I don't know. And I later found out that I believe I was zapped by one of these creatures, but I never felt like that before. But we couldn't get these alarms to go off. They were just ringing for 30 to 45 minutes. I got in and tried to start the vehicle. It still wouldn't go off. All 3 of them were going off. And finally they went off and stopped ringing. And I got in and laid down in my truck and just kind of tried to get to feeling better. And I did. And the next morning we got up, and Dave is a big guy, bigger than me, and we all 3 tried to push the truck as hard as we could. We couldn't get those alarms to go off. I don't know how that happened, but my watch had stopped at 12:48, and myself at 12:48 that night, I didn't realize my watch had stopped, but it had stopped at 12:48. Apparently, that was around the time that all this had happened. And my cell phone was dead. Billy's cell phone was dead. So somehow something kind of zapped the energy out of what we had. And I don't know how that's possible, but that's what happened. And that was pretty strange. That's the first time we'd had anything like that happen down there. But these big orb things, we watched them go around the side of that hillside and go back into the woods. They were huge. They just glided around. I don't know where they went, but just kind of disappeared back there. I told Billy and Derry, I said, this is too strange, man. I don't know I think I'm going to take a break. He said, well, let's come down here this next weekend, and we may both take a little break down here. And Billy's continuously gifting these creatures. He's going down there every day or two and putting some type of food down there, and they're taking the food. And they left us a rock, a real cool rock. I still have it. We actually bagged up some evidence and tried to get DNA study done on it, but didn't have much luck with that. But some stuff that we found was very expensive, and we couldn't get anybody to give us an answer or what it was. But anyway, the next weekend we were down there, we were in a small ground blind, like a plastic deer hunting blind, because it was raining outside. We were in that blind, and then we started having these orbs about the size of a softball. They were white, solid white, and there were 7 of them, and they were just whistling around through the tree limbs and around our little blind, and it was very strange. I told him, I said, I've about had enough of this strange stuff happening down here. I'm going to take a break. So I got up and left that night, and he did too. I didn't go down there for probably 2 or 3 weeks or longer. I didn't go down there at all. I just wanted to kind of stay away from there for a while. She wasn't having much trouble with the creatures because we had put the cameras up and the motion sensor lights, had electricians install those for her. So I just kind of stayed away from down there. And I think Billy quit gifting them. And I didn't go down there for a while. And that was in June of 2020. And
Wow.
that's when 2 or 3 weeks after I quit going down there is when they started terrorizing my place. And I was, I don't know, probably 30 miles from there, from where I lived. But that's all I can figure, that they had either done what I was talking to Scott Carpenter at that time, because he and I were good friends, and God bless him, he's gone. He was a super guy. I sure miss that guy. But he was telling me that I probably got the hitchhiker effect. I said, well, these things are here at the house, and they're banging on the house at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, and the side of the house. And this went on for a while, and my horses were scared to death. I'd go down in the barn. They were so scared, they were up next to the fence, next to the drive where the light was. And these creatures.
Did your horses, sorry to cut you off, did your horses ever get any type of braiding done on their manes?
They sure did. Yeah, they sure did, Dave. Yeah, the horse that nobody could tame or ride, his name was Star. Nobody could get around that horse. He was a full-blooded stud, and the only body he would let around him would be me. And I could even ride him, but nobody else could get around him. And those creatures braided his hair, or something braided his hair. So sure did. Yeah, and at the same time, Martin was on patrol at that time. He was a sheriff's deputy, and I was calling him, and one of my officers, I was mayor at that time, and I would tell them, if you guys aren't on duty, if you don't mind, if you guys don't have a call and you're just patrolling, if you just drive down my drive and shine a spotlight, because about 2 o'clock in the morning, this would start. They'd start banging on the side of my house as hard as they could, either the right side or the left side. And I'd run outside to see what it was, and they weren't there. And this went on for a couple of months, and then they killed all my cats. I had a bunch of cats at the barn. They weren't actually my cats. They were kind of like wild, but they lived in the barn. And they would come up at night because I would feed them on my front porch. And I found them everywhere. They killed all of them. My dog disappeared. Never seen it again. the horses were frightened to death, and they were banging on the side of my house every night. And I was getting to the point where I thought these things were trying to kill me. One night they went on for about 2.5 months, and I had Dave and I had Martin Groves out there. He was one of the chief deputy sheriff that time. And he come out a couple times. He and I were good friends, and he knew what I was going through. And not far from me, there were 2 prize bulls killed, huge bulls. Their heads were twisted. And I don't know if it had to be connected somehow. I don't know why, but something did it to these huge bulls. They were expensive. But these things were trying to terrorize me. I think they were trying to kill me. They bent the fence on the back of my house, tore some of my vinyl off the back of my pool house. They were just trying their best to terrorize me. I don't understand why they were. They were trying to get in the house, I thought. And I would sit in the hallway next to my staircase with a 270 rifle and a 357 Magnum every night because they'd start banging on the house. And this one particular night, they were walking on the front porch of my house, and I had a huge front porch. It was like 40 or 50 foot long and about 10 foot deep, and it had columns. And it had fans under it, and I could see them walking on the porch by the window. And I thought they were coming in that night, and that's the night that I just had enough of these creatures. I thought they were going to try to tear the door down. About that time, they banged on the door so loud. I opened the door up with my rifle and cut the lights on, and they had threw a goat. Now, I don't have goats. My neighbors don't have goats. They had threw a goat on my door, next to the door where I opened it up, that I had to step out over it. There was a dead goat laying there. And I called Martin, and he came out and done a police report, and I called one of my officers, Dave Wiley, he came out. And I had the floodlights on. These things would start this every night, and I just about had enough of it. I went out there that night, and I just said, if you're going to get me, come on and get me. My horses are scared to death. You're here banging on my house every night. You're making all these noises, screaming and hollering. And I called Scott Carpenter up, and I said, man, these things are either going to kill me or they're trying to. What I need to do? He said, do you believe in Jesus Christ? And I said, well, of course, Scott, I'm Christian. And he said, rebuke them. And I said, well, how do I do that? And Scott told me how to rebuke them. He said, go to all 4 corners of your property and say, Christ, leave my farm and my animals alone and leave my property. And I did that in all 4 corners of my house and all 4 corners of my farm. And I went, I sat thinking, Scott, this is really going to work. And he says, if you believe in Jesus Christ, it will work. And I went back in the house that night. I was waiting for him to start all over again at 2 o'clock in the morning. I wasn't getting any rest. But I was up for over 2 months with these things banging on the side of my house. And that was the last time I ever seen them.
Wow. We got about 90 seconds left with you. What's your message to people about these creatures that you want the world to know?
Well, I do think they're like people. I think there's good ones and bad ones. I think there's different type. I don't know how to really tell you the different type or how they're going to act. But I've had good experiences and I've had bad experiences. And none of them basically ever tried to kill me. I mean, those did at my farm, and I think they may have tried to. But I was fortunate enough that I've had a lot of experiences. I've been very blessed to have those experiences. At the same time, I wouldn't wish some of those on anybody. But I would tell people if they want to become a researcher, you really don't find Bigfoot, they find you. I truly believe that because I know so many people that go out in the woods. They may hear one or hear a tree knock or something like that. these creatures don't show themselves unless they want you to see them.
Right. Darrell, thank you so much for coming on Spaced Out Radio. We're going to bring you on in a month's time. We're going to talk about Dogman, the LBL, and your encounters with this extremely scary and elusive creature. Thank you for being on Spaced
Dave,
Out
thank
Radio.
you so much. I would appreciate it. Anybody check out my channel, Bigfoot Believers and Other Creatures, and subscribe and follow my close partners and research partners, Ron Moorhead.
You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with your host, Dave Scott. All right, buddy. Thank you very much. Really appreciate that, Darrell.
Hey, Dave, thank you for having me on, buddy. I appreciate it.
We'll talk to you next month.
Sure.
Filthy will get you booked up, and we'll get you on to talk Dogman.
All right, buddy. Thanks, Dave.
All right. Take care.
All right. Bye.
Bye. Darrell Denton. That was amazing. Frickin' amazing. Mama Catherine. Mwah! I love you, my dear. Be right back, guys. I am back. Jackster is in. What a good night of radio, man. Oob to Joe's Maine. You've got braided hair. Thank you tonight to the following: Little Timmy Senor, Deborah Rooney ×5, Human Carl, Cat Chaser, Mike Bothwell, Beverly, and Cosmic Joe. Pardon me, Deb ×4. Deb ×4. Don't forget you can shop at our Spaced Out Radio store. We do not have ugly swag, people. No ugly swag. So make sure you keep on going, man. Keep on going. All good. All right, we're going to get going here in about 5 seconds. So sit back, relax, and here we go. All right, here comes the third and final hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. It is always a pleasure to have you here wherever you are on this beautiful planet we call Earth. Want to say hello to everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on every major podcast network. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot. Read the news wire. Check out our swag as well. Follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. The Desert Clam is set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. What do you got for us, Clam? Delilate. Delilate is your password. Use it wisely, Space Travelers, as the Clam sets a password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Let's head to the swamp.
Hello and welcome to Spaced Out Radio's Swamp. I'm Swamp Dweller, and tonight I'm going to take you on a mystic journey of the unknown, sharing tales of monsters, legends, and nightmares. Welcome to the Spaced Out Radio Swamp. Something is prowling my campsite. By Anonymous. And change put a great deal of strain on an already weak marriage, resulting in her moving back to live with her folks in New Hampshire. I was depressed about it, and when a 4-day weekend came up, I decided to head into the mountains for a little time for myself. The road was rough, going as soon as I left the highway. I kept driving in my 2000 Ford F-150 until I saw another road about 10 miles away from the highway. This road was overgrown and looked like it hadn't been used for some time. Since my intention was to completely escape away from people for a few days, I took it. The road was hardly wide enough for my truck, and went all the way and over a ridge into a quiet field in the middle of the woods. Small steam made its way through the center. I pulled off the road and decided to make a camp. Within a short period of time, a campfire was made, and the back of my truck was set up for sleeping. I had an old camper shell and an inflatable mattress with blankets and such. I made a dinner of steak and potatoes and watched the sun disappear below the horizon. It was beautiful out there. No sounds of cars or anything. I felt like I honestly had the whole world to myself, and I felt good for the first time in a long time. A few drinks later of single malt scotch, I decided to go to bed and get some sleep for an early start the next day. I had planned to do some fishing and maybe have a small hike. The weather was cool and the stars and the moon were clear. I fell asleep as soon as my head hit the pillow. A few hours later, though, I was woke up to a growl outside my truck. Heavy footsteps circled around my vehicle, and then I heard a high-pitched scream. I normally, at the sound of being paranoid, carry a handgun while camping, and this time was no different. I reached over and unholstered my Charter Arms Undercover 38 Special and sat with my back to the cab. It was still circling the vehicle, and I managed to glimpse it through the side camper window. A dark and mysterious-looking woman and a short, plump man were staring at my vehicle. They did not look armed, so I decided to go ask them what they wanted. I got out of the truck and looked in the direction I had seen them. But there was nothing. I searched the entire area around the site. Nothing. I got back in the truck and locked the door. It must have been my imagination, I told myself, and a few hours later, I eventually passed out again. I again awoke to the truck rocking and screaming and hollering in the early morning as a person was hitting my camper shell repeatedly and yelling obscenities. I did not want to remain there any longer. I slid through the sliding window in my cab, started the truck, and got the heck out of there. When my headlights came on, I saw a circle of people in robes surrounding me. I threw the truck into reverse and punched it out of there. They jumped out of the way as I barreled into reverse through their circle and took off like a bat out of hell, with them running behind me on foot. Then I got to the main road. I floored it out of there. Unfortunately, a highway patrolman was right there, and I was pulled over. He came to my window, and after I related the story of what happened, he told me that area I was in was home to a religious cult. The road I went up to was supposed to have a no trespassing sign and a chain. I'm happy nothing more sinister happened.
Thank you to Swamp Dweller for another great story. And if you want more just like that, head on over to youtube.com/Swamp Dweller Reads, and you get more stories that are just amazing and spooky. From the swamp to the forest where we go looking for some cryptids, here's Jacques Harmon.
Oh, hello, Jackie.
Jackie Herman, it's always a pleasure to have you here on Spaced Out Radio. How you doing, my friend?
I'm doing really good. How are you doing?
I am fantastic. Looking well, feeling well, and ready
You
to
look
go look
great.
for some monsters this weekend.
I'm loving the haircut. You look
It
nice.
is, yes, takes me
Looking
back
really
to my
sharp.
bar star days of my early 20s, let me tell you, except there was a lot more color in it than there is right now. What have you been up to?
Oh my gosh. School. Teaching my kids school. I homeschool my kids, so lots of school stuff. That's about it.
Well, that's good. That's good.
Yes.
I'm getting
Having a good
ready
time
to
with them.
well, my boy is in grade 6 now, and he's having a good time. He got the same teacher as he did last year. Just moved up,
Oh,
which he did really well with his teacher last year. So that's always a good thing.
that's
So,
awesome.
yeah.
I don't think I've ever heard of kids having the same teacher 2 years in a row.
Well, that's the benefit of going to a small school, right?
Oh, that's nice.
Like, I don't even
Yeah.
think there's 100 kids in that school.
Oh, yeah. Same at my kids' school. If they go to campus, it's very, very small. It's a charter school, so it's a very small, like even the
Yeah.
classrooms are like, 6 to 10 kids. It's
Mhm.
crazy. Yeah, that's pretty cool.
It is awesome. You've
Yeah.
got some really interesting stories for us tonight.
I do, in fact, have some really good stories. Let me get one on my phone here that I was gonna read and then it went away. Okay, here we go. Okay, so today in creepy history, this is May 15th, 1913, in Farmersville, Texas. It's morning when the Latham brothers, Clyde, 16, Sid, 13, and Syllaby, 12, begin chopping cotton. at their family farm located about 2.5 miles outside Farmersville, Texas. Suddenly, they hear their dogs barking and howling at something in distress. They're very curious to see what it is. The boys run to see. Sorry, my phone keeps turning off. The boys run to see the cause of the distress, and suddenly they see this very tiny little man. The dogs are cornered, and this little man, about 18 inches tall, is standing there. They don't understand what they're seeing. He doesn't have any clothes on. He's got a hat on, sort of like, it's part of his head actually. Looks like a sombrero. His skin's kind of a grayish green. The creature just stands there looking at them, but the dogs don't understand what it is and actually, sadly, attack it. It tears it apart. The boys are in distress, very sad. They decide to go leave it alone because what can they do? But they decide to go back later to see what exactly is that thing. It's splattered with blood, and small little human-like internal organs scattered in the grass under what they now see as just a mess. The boys just simply walk away, not understanding, but think to themselves, were we imagining that? What exactly was that? What kind of encounter did we just have? The next morning, all tracks are gone. The story remains that the Latham family, secret until January of 1978, when Lawrence Jones, Sylvie Latham's grandson, tells the story to the Center for UFO Students that he now teaches. I thought that was pretty cool.
I can't imagine what that is. A little 18-inch creature. I mean, was it like a little forest dweller? Was it something that you just can't unsee? I mean,
Yeah.
how weird is that? Or was it maybe a little gnome or whatever it could be? What do you think?
That it's really weird because I am fascinated by tiny people. And I actually watch a guy who goes out into the forest and claims he actually sees these little tiny creatures. But I've never heard of one or seen one the way they describe it, where the top of its head looks like it has like a sombrero style top of its head. And yet that's exactly what they said it looked like, but it wasn't an actual hat, had no clothes. Just the way they described it was, hat like, but it just sounds very bizarre because I've never heard of such a thing. So it almost makes me wonder if it's just a very tiny little alien. So I don't know. That was a new one for me. I thought it was quite interesting.
That is quite interesting. I'm still shaken, because I know a number of years ago I saw what I thought was the only thing I know how to call it is a forest dweller. And my son and I have told this story on the air before, but if people are new, they're not going to, hear this story. So this will be their first time. But my son and I, he was only about 3 years old, and we were out geocaching along one of the lakes, just having a daddy Sunday. And I had him in the stroller because he wanted to walk and, but there's bears in the area at that time of year. And it was, beginning of September, just like it is now. And, he could still, be put in a stroller at that time. So him and I are walking in a stroller and we come up on this geocache, we get the geocache, we put it back, and we start cresting this hill and start to come down. All of a sudden, like if you were walking, say, north, on the west side of us is the lake down below. So it's probably 50, 60 feet down is the lake. And all of a sudden this little, I don't even know what to call it, like a almost looks like a rotted out 2x4 with little legs, like little cartoon legs and little cartoon arms, comes walking from the lakeside of the drop
Yeah.
to onto the path, and it gets about a quarter way onto the path, and it stops, looks at us, and then vroom, just as fast as anything, takes off right back down the hill.
Interesting.
And I remember saying to my boy, I said, "Son, did you see that?" And he's like, "What was that, Daddy?"
So he
Right?
did.
Yeah. He doesn't remember now. I mean, he's 11
Yeah.
years old. This is 8 years ago. But I mean,
Mm.
it was phenomenal. To this day, I still don't know what it is. My only thing that I could think of is that it was some sort of forest dweller.
Yeah.
But we
Yeah.
caught it off guard. And here's the other part about it, Jackie.
Mm.
It was blurry.
Oh, interesting.
Not fully blurry, but like if you're double imaging something.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
like that creature that I explained that when
Mm.
Ane and I were on that road trip, we had seen that little blurry creature on our way to
Yes.
New Orleans. We talked about that before, but that's exactly how we saw it in a blurry way.
Yeah.
That's interesting. It's interesting the way you described it as almost like cartoon looking because the videos that I actually watch with this guy that goes out and looks and finds these little characters, he has taken other people out. So it really makes me feel like, okay, I don't feel like maybe he's making these things or creating these things now because other people are going out there and saying like, hey, we really want to see these things, and then they actually say like, look, we actually had a sighting, we saw the things he's showing us. But they very much remind me of how you described, like almost like a cartoon looking
Yes.
little tiny person, and that's exactly what they look like. And I always think like they kind of almost remind me of like something you would create drawing or like cartoon
Yeah.
style, but yet they look real. So it's mind blowing.
I don't know if I would ever see another one. Because it was weird. It was
Yeah,
completely weird. And once again, there's no time to pull out a camera on your phone because it's happening in like a fleeting second.
yeah.
But it's one of those, you got to trust me, bro. I know what I saw, right? And I
Oh yeah,
realize at 3 years old, my son isn't the best eyewitness, but
right.
it is what it is.
Well,
And
exactly. Yeah, exactly. I mean, I've seen strange things before where I would be with someone who couldn't really like describe what we saw or wouldn't even talk about it. So, you're just like, "Okay, I'm kind of out there by myself. But that's pretty cool that you had a sighting. I'm starting to actually really believe in these smaller forest like mini people. I don't even really know what to call them, but I'm starting to believe that maybe there actually might be more things out there than we ever thought because people are actually like, I think because it's so much more accepted now for people to come forward with, like, hey, this is what happened to me, or this is what I saw. And so we're hearing stories of people who've seen things like, like years and years and years ago that were afraid to come out back in the day. So I think it's awesome.
I think it's amazingly awesome too.
Yeah.
And I just, to this day, I don't know how to explain it, but that's okay. I don't need to explain it.
It's just a really amazing sighting. I mean, it doesn't matter if anybody believes it or not. It's something that you experienced, and that's amazing.
What do you got next for us? We got about 5
I
minutes to go.
Yeah, I actually want to tell you guys about this really awesome story. I just heard about these two guys. This just happened too. Um, they live in Las Vegas. I think they're somewhere around maybe like mid 20s. And they decided they were going to take a little road trip and go to California. They just wanted to go spend a weekend together and just have some fun. Well, they left Las Vegas pretty late at night. They were driving down the road, and about halfway, they came across this like rest stop area that was like nobody was there, and it was like just this, empty parking lot. So they decided they would stop off, use the restroom, and just get some sleep. They were just wiped out. So they decide to take their sleeping bags and go lay outside because they're like, wow, there's nobody here. Why don't we just sleep outside and just like watch the sky and see if we can see anything cool? And as they're laying there, they said they were just getting comfortable when all of a sudden they smelled something really rotten out of nowhere. It just smelled like nasty, gross, like wet dog and like a musky, nasty, skunky smell. And it just kept getting worse and worse. And so one boy just sits up. I call him a boy because they're younger, but one guy sits up and he realizes there's something standing a little too close to where he can see something, but he's not quite sure what it is. Tells his friend to sit up. So now they're both looking at it, and all of a sudden realize as it starts to walk towards them that now they are like literally looking at a Bigfoot. They both freak out, jump up, run to the restroom. And I don't know why they didn't go get in their car, but anyway, they decide to go run into the restroom at the rest area. And we're talking about an old door that's probably like a million years old. You know, these old rest
Yeah.
areas that have these like old doors with like the holes inside the buildings. And, so here they are, they're trying to like shut this door. It's barely shutting. The guy said it was like rusty. They could barely even get the thing to shut all the way and lock. They're both pushing on the door, and all of a sudden, they're just panicked. And this Bigfoot is like pushing on the door. Of course, they're freaking out and they're trying to figure out what to do. We need to find something, just in case it comes in, we need to protect ourselves. And the guy's asking, what do you have? What do you have? And all one guy has is like a pack of mints and a little flashlight. And he's like, I don't care what it is, just get it out. And so this, Bigfoot's like pushing on the door. It's like not really like knocking, it's like pushing, but they says the way it was like pounding on the door sounds like it's knocking, but you could tell it was just trying to shove the door open. And it lets out this excruciating sounding like,
No.
scream at them that terrorizes them. And one of the guys goes into a full-blown panic. The other guy's trying to think like, what can we do? And they're both like sitting down on the ground now with their backs up against the door, and they can literally feel this thing pushing and pushing and pushing. So he says this went on for hours. And he said finally at one point they thought maybe it left. They decided to get up. And he says, we're going to have to go. We're going to have to. And the guy says, no way, we're not leaving until daylight. I'm not leaving this building. And he says, just about the time they think they're maybe considering opening the door, all of a sudden it starts all over again. They could hear it walking back and forth,
Whoa.
and coming at them. So the one friend says, listen, we're going to have to do something. We need to make a run for it. And he says, I don't know what to do, but I'm going to take these mints and I'm going to get them all like choppy, wet them, and then I'm going to throw them in his face. And the guy's like, you're crazy. And he's like, well, that's the plan. That's what we're going to do. And we're going to run for it. So he goes over and he's literally chopping up these mints, and he throws a little bit of water on him, thinking like something's going to get in his face and, he's going to be scared and run off. Well, he convinces the other guy to open the door just a tiny bit, and he throws it in its face, and it just bellows out this scream
Oh,
at them, scares them again worse than before. They slammed the door shut and they stayed there till daylight. They could not believe what was going on. Well, the
all
next
right.
morning,
Hold that thought. We're going to
okay, go
continue
ahead.
that story. Jackie Harmon is here for the UFO report, which continue or the Cryptid report, which continues right after this.
This is Spaced Out Radio, and your host, Dave Scott.
Woohoo!
Oh my gosh, could you imagine that? I've been through some stuff, but let me tell you, I would not want to be stuck in one of those bathrooms with a Bigfoot.
Oh man.
No thanks.
Drive me nuts. I honestly don't know how I'd turn out with that.
Oh,
You don't.
well, if it had like a secure, maybe heavy door with a heavy lock, but not the way these guys were talking about it.
Right?
Yeah, no thanks. I do understand them though. Panic mode sets in pretty quickly sometimes.
Oh, 100%.
Mm-hmm. Been
100%.
there. We've both been there.
Yeah, we have. We totally have.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to see how many
Uh-huh.
times I can Jackie tonight.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Only because I care.
Well, if you care, then come down here and see Jackie.
You and I
Come
had that
visit
conversation
Jackie.
earlier.
Yeah, we did. Yeah. Come to Cali. Let's have some fun. We could go to Vegas.
Oh, I need a Vegas trip so bad right now.
That'd
So
be
bad.
fun. Yeah, that would be a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm.
Hi, everybody.
That would be fun.
Yeah, lots of fun. Vegas is always a good time.
See how it is after this month. I gotta go chat with some people down there anyways.
Yeah,
Yeah.
make it a business trip.
Trying.
There you go.
I just gotta pay down my credit card enough right now to get down there.
We're surrounded by these fires down here. I don't know if anybody else on here knows, but I'm down in Southern California and we are
Mhm.
surrounded by them. We're actually on kind of a little bit of an alert to get ready to get out of the air. The air quality is so crazy. The skies look like doomsday. It's weird.
We got 2 minutes. I hate those doomsday
Ugh,
clouds.
it's just bizarre looking.
They are, forest fire clouds are the worst because it
Uh-huh.
has the smell, it
Mm.
has the haze, it burns your eyes.
It does. It burns my eyes real bad. I know my sinuses are killing me today too.
Oh, they kill my
Yeah.
sinuses too.
Really bad. Like the sun looks bizarre, the moon looks bizarre, and it's just so weird. I mean, it just looks like you're on a different planet. It's just like the whole sky is orange and the sun is like
For people
so
who've never
red.
seen it, it's like those photographs you see of the Mars rover and the
Yes.
Mars sky, which looks like a yellowish haze,
Yes.
yellowish,
Yes.
greenish gray haze.
It's exactly what it looks like. It's just so weird. And then it beams in our windows in the afternoon when whole room looks orange and strange and my kids trip out on it. They're like, "What's going on?" And I'm like, "It's just the fire cloud."
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, super close. So yeah, we got a bag packed and possibly, just in case.
Mm-hmm. Hey, do me a favor, stick around after the show. I got to chat with you.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, that would be coolio.
No
Thank you
problemo.
tonight to Deb times 4, Cosmic Joe, Beverly, Mike, Cat Chaser, Tim, Human Carl for the great super chats tonight. Don't forget, you can always shop at our Spaced Out Radio store. We do not have ugly swag, people. No ugly swag. So make sure you check it on out and get some swag today because we want you to look good. We don't want you to, say, oh, look, I have another painting shirt. You don't do that with us. You get to wear ours out in public and be proud of it. All right, 3 seconds. Here we go with the final half hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. Good to have you with us. My name is Dave Scott. What a show it's been, talking monsters and cryptids all night long, including guys getting stuck in a rest area bathroom because Sasquatch didn't want them to leave. And this just happened a few weeks ago.
It did, yeah.
All right. Before we get to Jackie Harmon, let us remind all of you that you can get our archives because they're always free. They're on every major podcast network as well as youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire. Check out our swag as well. Follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. Jackie, have you ever been stuck in a bathroom with Sasquatch?
Have I ever been what?
Stuck in a bathroom with Sasquatch?
No, but I've been stuck in a tent with one.
Yeah.
No bathroom. Although I did pee in that tent. So technically, I guess you could say I have.
Oh, people will have to go back in our archives to find out this story about Jackie Harmon getting
Go back.
groped by Sasquatch.
Ugh.
Are you over that yet?
No, I'm not. Every time I think I'm okay, it just resurfaces and I'm not okay again. And it really has affected me. Really has. Yeah. It messes with me big time. I get nightmares from it and I didn't expect that. But yeah. But no, I'm trying. I'm trying to get there.
Good. Yeah. Okay, back to the story. How did these guys escape the bathroom?
Okay, so it turns back, obviously they're in there all night long and now it's daytime and so they decide, well, it's quiet now and they don't think it's there anymore. They're just exactly like me. I said the same thing, but I'm like, when it's daylight, I'll go out. Well, they did the same thing. And as soon as they open the door, they realize, it's not there. But the very first thing they did notice when they walked outside was there's dirt all over the place, and they saw footprints of it surrounding the entire building. Well, of course, they were still very freaked out. So all they wanted to do was take off. One friend was yelling, "Hey, go get your phone. Let's take pictures." And the other guy was like, "No, dude, we're out of here. I'm not dealing with this." Well, they finally got back in the car and they took off and it took them a long time. They said for, a few hours, they were pretty quiet in the car because they didn't quite couldn't, grasp what exactly just happened to us. And this was just, like I said, just a few weeks ago. And so the one friend who was really freaked out about it said to him, "I don't think I'm going to go on any more road trips with you." So he's on a break. But I don't know if it's blaming his friend or if he's just freaked out about the circumstance. But I don't blame the guy. I really don't. I thought it's funny.
It seems to happen a lot. Like we were just talking to Darrell Denton earlier on when he brought his friend in to see the Sasquatch. And that friend wanted nothing to do with it after that. Nothing. And it seems to happen a lot in UFO encounters and cryptid encounters where after a nail-biting experience, it almost drives a major wedge between those friends, because there's usually one that is either so scared
Mhm.
or so freaked out, doesn't want to talk about it anymore, that just ending a friendship is the easiest way to do.
Exactly. Exactly. Well, for instance, I mean, I'm not trying to like talk badly about Lee in any way, but in the beginning, when our incident happened, I kind of felt a little bit like that, like he wasn't quite as, understanding of how it affected me even. And so I understand what you're saying because that does, it's like a factor in the situation of how you feel. You're like, wait, this happened to me, but you don't, seem to be as affected. So yeah, I mean, I get that. I totally get that.
Yeah, I get that too. And
Yeah.
I find it really, really weird. But it's understandable at that
Hmm.
time too. So this encounter literally lasted all night.
It did.
Oh man. How did they keep the Sasquatch out?
Well, these guys were saying that literally the entire night they had to sit towards the door where they were pushing. It must have been kind of a smaller area because I don't know how they did it, but they said they were pushing their body up against the door or they were standing and pushing it. Now, I don't know how in the world two men, now, this is just from my experience of like seeing the force of like what a Bigfoot can have, right? You would think that that Bigfoot could literally push it with its hand and break that lock. But somehow they kept this, you know, Bigfoot creature out. And I don't know if it was just curious of why the boys were there. Maybe this is exactly why the, you know, entire parking lot was empty. Maybe this is like its area. I don't know, but these boys were scared out of their minds and decided they're never going to stop there ever again. But they did share their story and they both said the exact same thing. This is what happened. And they were just freaking out.
How old were these guys?
I think they were around like mid 20s. I think they were just like two friends, college friends who decided they were just going to drive over for the weekend and just kind of like go check out some different places near the beach. And, I don't even know if they ever actually totally made it to where they were going. They just told their story and said that changed how they felt. And one friend said he's just not going to travel with the other guy. He just feels like he had something to do with it. And I kind of felt like, dude, I kind of feel you. I kind of understand you right now. Cause like when both people don't feel the exact same way, even though they were both freaking out, one of them might say, well, it wasn't as bad as what we are saying, or maybe it wasn't as bad as what you're feeling. But hey, when one person's feeling like it's a hard thing to deal with, it can leave you with, PTSD and all kinds of issues. Like, I'm not even kidding you. This was months ago. I grew up doing this and I'm still dealing with it. So I do understand it.
Oh, I totally get that. I think you should still feel that way. You
I
know,
do very much.
I believe you have one more story for us.
Yeah, I do. This is actually about a single mom who has two boys. One of them's around 6 years old, and the other one's around 14. And her 14-year-old actually wanted to go over and spend the night with his friend. And so she drove him over and dropped him off. And this house that she dropped him off at was probably about 10 miles away. And obviously, the boy doesn't drive. And so she gets him settled at the house and goes back home, and she decides, her and her little boy decide they're going to go sleep together in her bed and they're watching TV. Well, they're sitting there, and then all of a sudden, there's this knock at the door, and they're the only two people at the house. So, of course, she immediately says, who is it? And it freaks her out. Well, it's answering in her older son's voice. So, of course, that scares her immediately because she's thinking, like, wait a minute, he's not even here. I dropped him off. Why would this thing sound like my son? But she kept asking it questions like, what do you want? And he would say, let me in. And she would say, no, I don't know you. You know, you're not, who is this? And she would just keep asking questions. And it would say, I'm your son. And she said, no, you're not my son. I don't know you. Go away. And she was afraid to say too much. And she just kept asking it the strangest questions. And it kept knocking and knocking. But you could tell it was like a very weird, like not just a kid knocking at the door. It was almost like pounding and knocking at the exact same time. And then it would like shake the door handle. So the door handle's shaking, it's knocking and it's pounding. And she kept saying, who are you? And it would say, I'm your son, in her son's voice. And it kept repeating over and over. Anything she would ask, it would just answer her, but it would answer her in these very like um rude, direct ways that she said her son would never answer her in that way. And so he would say, like, I'm hungry. I need you to come make me food. And so she kept saying, there's food in the microwave. Go eat it. And because she knew the whole time, like, it wasn't her kid, but it kept talking to her as if it was trying to be her son. And he would say, Mom, let me in. I'm tired. And she would say, okay, fine, go to bed. so so finally she picks up her phone, right? And the thing is still pounding on the door, still in the son's voice, and it's still, jiggling the door, and it's freaking her out. And then the little boy thinks like it's his brother because he can hear the voice. And so he tries to get off the bed and go open the door. Well, the mom freaks out and grabs the little boy and drags him back up on the bed and says, that's not your brother. I don't know who that is. And so she checks on her phone where the boy is at. And she says, where are you? Like, where's your phone? This is what she says to the person at the door. And he says, I have my phone. Well, so she checks the GPS on the phone and it shows that the boy is at the friend's house. So she knows for a fact, like, that's not my son. And so this goes on for probably about like 10 minutes where he just would not leave her alone. And she finally yells, go away. I know you're not my son. And it just stops.
Weird.
And she knew there was something weird going on.
Did she think of going and calling the police?
I don't even know if she ever called the police. I'm sure she probably did eventually, but in the story, it never said anything about her calling the police or even picking up and trying to like call her son. She just said that she checked his location and the boy was there. And she said it went on probably like maybe 10, 15 minutes. It just kept knocking at the door, but it was just like a pounding and a shaking. And it just kept answering her in like this really rude way. And she just knew that's not my son. I don't know what that is. So it was mimicking her son the whole time. And she said it was the first time they'd ever experienced paranormal activity ever in that house. Nothing had ever happened that they knew of until that night. So she has no idea why or where it came from or why it would even happen. But I thought that would freak me out, and I'm used to the paranormal. Would not be okay.
Yeah,
But
no
yeah, I
kidding.
probably would call. I'd be calling the police.
Yeah, that's it almost sounds like a black-eyed kid situation.
Yeah, it kind of does.
The weird part about it is that it was mimicking the son's voice, almost like,
Mhm.
you hear people talk in the forest about how they'll hear voices of people that they know. That happened to a friend of mine.
Yeah.
What
Yeah.
happened in your situation?
Well, I was actually in the woods with my dad and some other family members. And I think I've actually talked about this either on your show, my show before, once before, where we don't go away from each other very far. but probably about maybe, I'd say 50, 60 feet away, my dad walked off to the left. I walked off to the right, and we knew exactly where we would be. And we were having some Bigfoot stuff happening around us. So we were trying to see if maybe we could hear it in one area or the other. Well, as soon as he was a little off, I'd say probably about 60 good solid feet away, I heard his voice say my name like in my ear as if it was standing right here next to me. And I thought, I turned around, literally thinking that my dad was going to be standing right behind me, and there was no one. And I knew right then and there that it was mimicking my dad's voice. And we had heard things like that growing up. So I knew.
Yeah, my friend was out hunting, and he's on this trail, walking down this trail, and he heard my voice in the forest.
Oh, wow.
I know the exact spot it's happened. I've been up and down that trail a few times. And
That's
it was just
crazy.
like, it was like, Mike, help me. I'm in here. Help me. I'm
Oh,
in here. Come in here, Mike. Help me. And I'm 20, 30 minutes away at
oh,
home
wow.
preparing for the show.
That's not uncommon. I've heard other family members of mine and friends growing up. I Because they were all hunters when I grew up, and quite a few of them still do. And we actually stopped doing that several years back, but they would say that they would hear other people that they knew, usually people in our family, because that's who we were always with, in the woods, either hunting or, Bigfoot research or whatever it was we were doing. Camping didn't matter. And several of them said throughout the years that they would hear another family member or a close friend calling out as if they were in trouble, and they would say, help me, I need you, I'm hurt, or something like that. But every single one of them that would hear someone else's voice was calling out like that, just like that, for help. That's crazy.
What do you think that luring in is? Whether it's these people at the door where the mother was smart enough to know that wasn't her child, whether it was my buddy in the forest or your situation.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I do believe that there are things in the woods, forest, whatever you want to call it, that do try to call us closer. I feel like they do mimic us in ways to draw us further away from the people that we're with, because they want us to be closer to them. If it's to, see us, or if it's to harm us, or whatever it is. I mean, think about how many people have gone missing, hunters, hikers, different things like that. And, I mean, those things could have happened to them. Who knows? Maybe they heard someone that they knew calling out, and it called them into, some way closer. I had a personal experience in New Orleans where I thought something was calling me. Um, and it's very weird because it almost put me almost in like this dazed out feeling of like not really even knowing like what I was thinking or where I was. And I wandered off, and I know better. I grew up, knowing these things. You don't do those things. And I got lost in the woods. My family went looking for me. So, and I felt like something was calling me closer and closer and closer. And it's hard too, because when they found me, it was like I had no memory of it in the moment. I was like, how did I get here, kind of thing. And they were like, why'd you wander off? You know not to do that. So I do believe that when they do that, the mind speak or whatever it is we're hearing does draw us towards something else. They want us to get closer and get away from our family members.
Do you think they're trying to take us to a different realm?
I do believe that there are portals and other realms that we sometimes do get very close to in their world, because I do believe that they are interdimensional beings. And yeah, I do believe that they are sometimes trying to pull us into that world. And That's an easy way to do it. I mean, think about it. That's like one of the things. If I heard my child's voice in the woods calling out to me, yeah, I'm gonna go. That's the first thing I'm gonna do is go look for that, my child, if I think that's my child. Now, if I knew my child was like hundreds of miles away or in another state, or I mean, then I would think like, whoa, wait a minute, that can't possibly be my child. But like for instance, let's just say you're camping as a family, and then all of a sudden you hear your child calling out for help. I've heard so many people say they've heard children and babies, a lot of women crying, babies crying, children crying. And I do feel like that's another way that they lure people closer, for sure.
I could see that happening. I mean, the problem is when you get the whole sound of babies crying, that also leads to a lot of wild animals and the
Yeah,
sounds that wild animals make when either A, they're in heat, B, they're being
true.
attacked, C, they're looking for mom because they're newborns.
Hmm.
I mean, there's a lot of strangeness that goes on
Yeah,
with that.
yeah.
So it's very interesting. We got about a minute to go here, if that, Jackie. And I know that summer is winding down. Are you going to try and get back into the forest before you go, before the
You
end of the
know,
year?
it depends on if I can find the right people to go with. I do have one spot in Northern California that I've been to several times. And if I can get a group to go, I would like to go up there one more time before it gets too cold. So, yeah.
Well, that'll be 70 degrees for you. Yeah. Jackie Harmon, thank you for a great cryptid report. We very much appreciate you coming on in once again. Tell everybody where they could get a hold of you.
If you guys want to come follow me on Element 115, we also do Element 115 here on Spaced Out Radio every Friday night from 8 to 9 p.m. But my personal page is Jackie Harmon. You guys just come over, follow, say hello, talk to me. I'm the most down to earth person you'll find.
Jackie Harmon, everybody. Good night to her, and hello, Mr. Ron Bumblefoot Thal, rocking in the background with Little Brother is watching. Bumblefoot is the official music of Spaced Out Radio, rocking us in and out of every single show. Get your horns up for the guitar god himself. Special thanks to everybody listening in at work, at home, in your cars, wherever you may be. Thank you to everyone in our chat rooms tonight. YouTube, Twitch, LGAP, Facebook, Spreaker, LinkedIn, the Space Travelers Club, and on X, hashtag Spaced Out Radio. Remember, this show is copyright by Spaced Out Radio and SOR Media Ventures Limited. Thank you so much for choosing to share your evening with us, because together, my friends, we own the night. Mr. Bumblefoot, we need a favor. We need you to take us home. Yes, the Woo train has docked for the night. But soon, my friends, we shall ride again. Seats are always available. Your tickets never expire. And if you want to bring a friend, we've got room for them too. Good night, everybody. All right, we is clear. Clear as a clear wind.
I'm
that you
inside
can't
and that
see.
fire is still affecting me.
Oh, I don't blame you.
Oh my God,
I
it's
don't
killing me.
blame you. I feel bad for you.
It's all
That
right.
sucks.
Hopefully it'll go away soon.
Mm-hmm. Fire, don't go away mad. Fire, just go away. Little Motley Crue there.
Yeah, love it.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh,
All right, to a
was it?
Spaced Out Radio family tomorrow night on the show, Science Bob and Friends. Yep. We're going to get into a lot of UFO stuff.
Love
It's
me
going to be
some science,
interesting.
Bob.
Yeah, Science Bob is here.
Bob.
Science Bobbert. Thank you to Deb times 4, Human Carl, Tim, Cosmic Joe, Beverly, Cat Chaser, excuse me, and Mike for the great super chats tonight. I'm a little tired. Got to chat with Jackie. We'll let you guys go. Have a good night, everybody.
Have a good night.
Stay healthy, my friend.
You too.
You need bail money, give me a call.
Always, Dad. Take care.
You too.